actually, the closer you can get, the less I have to zoom in, so the better the better the quality will look.
So that's better then. That's okay.
Yeah. Now I'll just fix this.
You get the stream started. I'm going to get chat going so I can watch what's going on in the chat room.
Okay.
I meant to come out here many hours ago, but it was so nice outside, well, nicer than usual, and I was like, man, I can't not take the kid out. I can't do it.
Where'd you guys go? Go over to the park?
Oh, we didn't go anywhere. We just went in the backyard and played.
Okay. Yeah, well, I don't blame you at all. Yeah, that looks real good. Now we're of the same altitude.
Okay.
Now I need to do this for the other scenes. Okay. Select the window and hit Control plus. Okay. Good. I want you to feel like a winner. Isn't it crazy? Well, why don't you... What?
There's a few of us.
Uh-huh.
I don't have a printer, so...
You don't have a printer? You don't own a printer?
Teresa's got one, but it ain't worth it.
Wow.
I hope everyone's doing okay today in the chat there. I see you. Once we get to...
No, this will be the longest time of getting things set up, and then we should be good to go.
Thank you.
And then one more. And I'm going to obviously make the chat text smaller here. Let's see. Yeah, source.
It's just lucky we've got enough equipment to pull off this little trick.
Yeah, I mean, really, we have, even if we didn't do multiple shows, I mean, who doesn't own a webcam and a thing at this moment in time?
Yeah, I suppose you're right. I mean, I owned one, but I never used the darn thing,
Yeah, you had the Rock Band mic. You could have used that.
That's right.
It happened again. I have no idea why.
Now that time I changed the size of the window.
Never do that again.
Well, I didn't know. I didn't know that would do that. I couldn't see everything on the screen. I'm done. Now look,
I've got to literally reset everything I just did.
Well, dude, I didn't know. Resizing my window. I mean, the window that I see you in is what I'm talking about. And that's bizarre. At least we figured out what was causing it.
Yes.
Yeah, you don't usually get this view. Brent, I thought Brent was going to just fill me up with all these different game boxes that were for all the games we did, and then one week he just stopped, and we've never gotten a single one. So I was going to cover all the walls with it, but I only got the one behind me done. It's kind of a bummer. I feel like I'm in a clandestine location, Bo.
You sort of are.
I can raise that camera a little bit if it would help. Whatever you want.
Well, ideally, you'd want to be as close to the. You want to have this. It's ideally, I want you to look like you look when you're in your room. So it's
You want me to
right up
bring
on
this
top of you.
a little more in?
Yeah.
I'll do whatever you want, man. Just don't hurt me.
Okay, that's better. Now I can zoom out a little bit and improve the quality. There we go.
Huh. What's up, Michiyama?
What else do you still
Lance.
You still have the air conditioning running, right?
I'll turn it off.
No. It's fine. I'm glad that you do, because if it sounded like that with no air conditioning on, I would be concerned. So it's all good. Okay.
There's a train going by too.
Yeah, I heard that. In fact, I heard it in stereo because I can hear it from my house as well.
Creepy.
Okay. Now we just need to set this up. I'm going to leave it in widescreen for the other scenes.
Great.
So people can see your splendor. Okay. Let's double check, make sure everything looks okay. That looks good. That looks good. That looks good.
Yes, Jason, it is.
Okay, now I need to go into, oh, let's see. Thanks, Pix. I got it on the old notes. Leander, next week. Picked by you. Now we need to go to all widgets, chat, and font size. Let's try that and see how that works. Okay, that looks pretty good. Are you looking at the chat, Aaron?
Mm-mm.
Okay. People in the chat are asking you questions.
That would be cool. I am at my house. The state of Kentucky have put everyone in our lab on like half shifts. So we're doing 50% work from home and 50% work at the lab. And since I can't really work from home, so I've got little things and studying and whatnot I can be doing. And then I'll get to go to prison in a couple weeks. That'll be fun. I'm not looking forward to that. I'm hoping they shut the whole thing down by then, but we'll see. I've been sitting here and watching too much. It's too much information, so I just stopped watching the information. I was getting too depressed. You look confused, Boat.
Well, I'm just... all right, we're ready to go.
Let me turn off the AC then, yeah?
Okay. Oh my gosh. It sounds so good.
Whoops. It's weird that I have papers here. It's very... Or anything. How are we doing now? Did that help?
Yes, it sounds glorious now. It sounds so much better.
Glorious!
Especially because I'm wearing these, like, ultra-sensitive headphones, so... All right. We are ready to rock and roll. Let's see.
Let me go ahead and bring up the website real quick.
All right. You ready?
No, hold on one second. I'm getting everything Amiga up.
Okay.
Because I haven't got to see what was on here this week. Okay. Okay, I guess I'm ready, man.
All right.
You go do the opening and stuff? Or?
It's going to be exactly the same as it always is.
All right, man.
All right, here we go. Support the Amigos podcast on Patreon or PayPal and receive cool perks and rad swag. Visit our page at everythingamiga.com/support.
Amiga, the first personal computer that gives you a creative edge.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today, Aaron, we are separate but equal. We are together and yet apart. This is the very first episode of Amigos that we've ever filmed remotely, covering
Except for the one I called in. Remember that one?
Oh yeah, that was a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we are here, me in Amigo Studios, you in Amigo Studios East. So we apologize in advance for any snafus that might occur, any imbalance in audio. I'm trying to make sure that everything's as good as it can be, but we're gonna do this thing. We're not gonna let coronavirus keep us down. We are strong and we are ready to rock and roll with today's game. Great Courts 2? No, Tennis Cup 2. Tennis Cup 2 is the name of the tennis game.
Big difference, both.
There is a big difference, trust me. I played plenty of both this week. So,
yeah.
Aaron, before we get into the show proper, why don't we talk a little bit about what's been going on everythingamiga.com this week?
Well, we had one come in from the man himself, the Dreamcatcher. Now this one, I'll have to admit, I've just looked over it in the past 20 minutes or so. But what he's done here is he's taken a look at some of the Batman games that were not the, I would say, more famous Batman games. He's looked at someone the Amiga, someone the ZX Spectrum. It's funny. I've always been a Batman fan, but I've not played a ton of the lesser. In fact, I'm trying to think of any Batman games I really, really like that aren't modern.
Well, this was during a weird time, in that mid to late 80s period when nobody was really sure what Batman was anymore, because you had the Adam West Batman, which was the campy, silly Batman, but then that was also after the Frank Miller Dark Knight Returns series, which was a much more serious take. So Batman was sort of in artistic limbo, I would say.
I wonder if they ever made one of the games based on that real dark, the dark Batman.
Yeah, I don't know. In
all honesty, the campy Batman of the '60s, I did watch. I love Adam West. But I mean, the show as a Batman show, I remember being appalled by it. Frankly, I just hated it so much. And then as they even the movies, really the only Batman thing I've ever really been really into was the animated series. And the games that came from it were okay. I mean, they weren't like the best games. I thought they were pretty good.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think Batman is one of those things that people. It's sort of like it's the ultimate rose-colored glasses thing where they're like, well, Batman's too silly now. We need to take it back to when he was really, dark and gritty. But then you look at some of the Golden Age stuff, and it's pretty silly. It's pretty darn silly. But at the same token, people are like, well, with the new Batman movies with the Bane and all that, Batman's too serious. Well, he killed people with guns back in the 40s. He didn't care.
Yeah. The new Bane movie, the last one, before the new batch came around. That was so stupid. Bane was an awesome character in the comic books, and they really ruined him. Although it wasn't as stupid as Bane's first appearance in the original run of the movie, where they completely neutered him. But it wasn't much better. They've got a bad track record translating the comic books to the films. It's unfortunate because there's a wealth of quality stories there that they just don't seem to want to do them. I don't know.
Yeah. And I apologize for the people that have been watching this live on the stream. I've switched to the wrong window here. And so, in fact, I don't really even know. Oh, here we go.
See me.
Yeah, you get to see a frozen Aaron, which is what
That's
everybody
right.
wants. There we go. There's the correct window. So, working
I'm
out.
not there to help go through all these screens. It just falls apart.
Yeah, working out the kinks. Thank you, chat, for popping that up. So anyway, I'm sure that there are lots of interesting Batman games for us still to cover. We still haven't done the Batman game on the Spectrum, which is, of course, a lot of people think that is the ultimate Batman game. So we will look forward to all these things coming up in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorta.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up this week's everythingamiga.com site updates. Let's talk about...
Hey, we should mention about if you... a couple weeks ago, Graham put up a thing about asking for everyone's favorite games for each year, which I still haven't done either. So I'm reminding myself and everyone else. It's an awesome idea. So if you get a chance, hop over to everythingamiga.com and fill in the little thing to add to Graham's list of people who have put their thoughts down. Absolutely.
Let's go over and see what's up with Amiga news this week, Aaron. The Gamble train has been good to us. We have several pretty interesting stories to talk about.
Okay. I've sort of been out of the loop this week, Bo, so I'm interested to hear what you got.
The first one is there are some reviews. As we talked about a couple weeks ago, there were three... I guess these were re-releases of Mutation Software games, Tommy Gun, 10 Toy Adventure, and Castle Kingdoms. These were recently re-released in physical form, and the reviews have started to roll in. This one comes to us from blog.amigaguru.com. And he basically gives a rundown of all of the different, the artwork, the packaging. And I've got to say, I really dig this kind of packaging. Instead of going for the big box type package, the cardboard box, these are jewel cases, not unlike you might find a cassette or something like that, but they are 3.5 inch disc sized cases. So to me, I think these look cool on the shelf, plus they're a little bit more durable than a cardboard box. Where do you stand on this sort of packaging, Aaron?
I disagree with you. I mean, I think it's a good package. It's more durable. You're right. You got that right. But it doesn't look better on the shelf. On the shelf, it looks like nothing. You can't. It doesn't. That don't cut it. So it depends. Really, when it comes to these specialty games, if it's me, I'm getting the box because people. It's funny. This was never a thing when I was a kid, but it is now. Even to me, it's collecting these boxes and put them on your shelf to make it look cool. And this ain't gonna do it. You're gonna unless it comes in a big box. It just you'll lose something. I'm sure there's a facet of people that'll buy this just to play the game.
Well, let me ask you a question. Did you never lined cassettes up on a shelf when you were a kid?
Not the same. I did not, by the way. I had one of those gimmicks, like a suitcase. You put the cassettes in.
The suitcase. You wanted them out of sight.
Because I've got cassettes on my, I've got Spectrum cassettes on my shelf right now, all right?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, they're not nearly as cool looking as the big box Amiga stuff I've got. Not even close.
Okay.
So yeah, the thing is, in today's world where collecting is a big deal, it surprises me that they went this route. But I mean, there are plenty of reasons to not use the big box. You named them. But I am sort of surprised. I mean, maybe they offer a big box or will be offering one.
Yeah.
To me, I don't care about that stuff. But I mean, I know a lot of people do.
Yeah, I don't know if these guys are going to offer any alternative packaging or not. I've seen there are some Amiga games that were released back in the day in these little kind of just big enough for the disc. This is, I don't know, it's a compromise because for people that do have limited shelf space, this does give them something to display, and it certainly looks better than the old plastic bag gimmick,
Yeah. Well, yeah, I do have a couple of these type of disc holders, and they work great. And they're, like you say, they're not nearly as easily to destroy.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of the actual how these games are, I don't think I've played any of these games.
I had a look at some of the videos, and he links to some videos from Lemon Amiga. Tin Toy Adventure is your standard 2D platforming affair. Not particularly impressive to me. However, Tommy Gun reminds me a lot of, imagine Cabal, but instead of having a static screen, you were constantly moving left and right, sort of like Forbidden Forest style. It looked super cool.
Okay. Yeah, that does sound pretty good.
And Castle Kingdoms is an isometric type game. Didn't really look like my bag. Out of these three, I would definitely check out Tommy Gun. It seems like
the
coolest
game. How old are these things, Bo? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know when these were originally released. There is the name of the website if you want to check out and order directly. You can go to softwareamusements.com. And check these out. It looks like these are already sold out, so you are out of luck if you want to buy the physical items. But you can still, of course, purchase the digital downloads, and the digital download is available for $7.99. What a deal! What a deal! I think anytime you can get under the mark for a digital edition for less than $10, you're in good shape. These are AGA games too. That means they're awesome.
So they're gold.
Yeah. All right, Aaron. And speaking of games for sale, last week I kind of felt we did a little bit of short shrift to Tiny Little Slug because I gave you a whole lot of information, most of which was wrong. So I did want to come back.
That was funny though.
I did want to come back to Tiny Little Slug and just one more time give a rundown on the pricing for this. So this is a puzzle platformer type game, not unlike Globule, I thought. And they have many options here. You can get the CD, the floppy, and the download version for $32. That is the most expensive version, and that comes with the box and the instructions as well. Or you can get just the download itself, and that is €19. So the pricing ranges from €19 for just the download. You can get the floppy disk, the CD version, or you can get the ultimate package, the CD plus the floppy plus the download for €32, including tax. So
I think I'd go for the box on that one.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, $20 for the digital. You might as well just throw in the extra, $15 or whatever.
I agree completely. And these are available over at amigashop.org. Now, finally, this is not strictly Amiga news related, but there is a documentary by Stephen Fletcher. Do you recall the name Stephen Fletcher, Aaron?
Yes.
He is the guy that made the Commodore story video, the documentary, and he's currently working on Amiga 2020. One of his earlier exploits, called the Chiptune story, traces the development of that particular form of music. He talks to the legends Rob Hubbard, Chris Huselbeck, Ben Danglish, who I believe, and Mark Knight. So he talks to these guys about 8-bit and 16-bit sampling and the sort of how it was programming music for games back in the day. Well, Stephen apparently has looked at all the people that are self-quarantining right now and said, hey, I want to give you guys something to watch. So he has uploaded the Chiptune story in 4K onto Google Drive. And you can, there is a link to this in the show notes, in the link to this episode, underneath the video or in the podcast notes. So you can download this thing and you can watch it at your leisure.
That's nice of him. Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And of course, Stephen does real good work, so I'm going to be checking this thing out. Sounds really cool.
Yeah.
All right, Aaron, and that's going to do it for this week's Amiga News, the Gamble Train.
I will give a quick shout out before we. And I don't know if we talked this week because I just watched it the other night, but Tin Mark has a new video out this week. Oh
shoot! I totally forgot to link that. Let's go ahead and talk about it right now.
He does. Well, among the two things he tackles are he actually gets his box copy of Zorro. Remember Zorro from a couple weeks ago? He digs into that. It comes with a bunch of little, little gimmicks in there, including a little cocktail sword, which I thought was pretty funny. Those cocktail foils you get like you put in a cherry. We were talking about how you reminded me we were talking about those boxes earlier. Zorro's box actually is a half box.
Okay.
So it's like it's a smallish box.
Right.
Now I think this is like a nice happy medium, to be completely honest with you, between the case that we just looked at and a huge box. This isn't too bad. I think. This guy also drew a Zorro comic and put in there, which is kind of cool. There's some stickers in there.
Looks like a lot of thought went into this packaging. This little mini Zorro comic, man, that's serious business.
If you think you'd be into Zorro, and Zorro, like I said, without playing it, I'm not gonna make a judgment on it. But it looked okay.
Mm-hmm.
But the guy actually, it looks like he did a pretty good job on the package for Zorro. And excuse me, it's up. It's good to go right now. The other thing Tin Mark looked at was a case for I think it's a 520 expansion that you can get. Now he's got one stuck in his Amiga 1000, but this is a case that goes into the actual Amiga 500 for this thing. It's just this houses the expansion, and it's laser printed. It looks pretty good.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, listen, tell the guy he needs to make one of these for the 1000.
Oh yeah.
Because Doug tried to put this in the 1000 with hilarious results.
Well, this is one of these boards that kind of sticks out and precariously without a special case. So I hope that a case for the 1000 does get made, because that would be something I'd be into in order to make my 1000 a little bit more usable.
Yeah, I think it would be. I think it would sell. I don't know how many people have done that with their 1000. And I've thought about it, but I've thought about a lot of crap.
Yeah.
So you never know what I'm going to do. Yeah, but this looks like a decent case. I'm all for the laser printed stuff. I've got 3D printed stuff. I've got 2 3D printed boxes for my Atomic Pi. They're great, and they were super awesome, way better than what I had, because I had this thing shoved down into I think it was a Cool Whip bin, in my own inimitable style.
Right.
I cut into this Cool Whip, So that worked out good. So Brent's going crazy for the 3D stuff right now. So this looks pretty good. And as I recall, it was real cheap, like $20 or something.
Wow. I wish the 520 was only $20 too. Then we'd be talking.
No kidding. But yeah, so check out Doug this week. He had put out another good one.
Cool. All right, Aaron. It's time to talk about Tennis Cup 2.
It's time, is it? Well, let's talk about it, but what the hell? So, now, this is a trick question, but had you played this before this week?
Never. I'd never played Tennis Cup 2.
Believe it or not, I had played this. In fact, a couple years ago, I did an Amigos play on it.
Really?
Yeah, I was surprised. Once I saw what it was, I was like, hey, wait a minute. And I went back and looked, and sure enough, I had done an Amigos play on it. And I remember it pretty well. So this game was from 92, 2 discs, and it was published by an outfit. It's funny because I've ran into these guys a bunch of times on ARG Presents. And we ran into them here just a few months ago. It's Lori Seal, I believe is the way it's pronounced. It's a French company.
Right.
Amongst the things they've done that we've covered, they actually did Panza Kickboxing.
Mm-hmm.
So they were responsible for that. And they developed and published.
You're forgetting the best game that they ever published.
What's that?
They did Yeti, man. They were the minds behind Yeti.
I think they published it. I don't think.
Listen, man, Mr. Loracell sat down at his Thompson M05 and knocked that thing out in one evening.
Is there a Mr. Loracell? I never read that.
Heck yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're making that up. So, anywho, like I said, you can actually have 2 players play this. This really, I found a little bit on the 3 guys that worked on it. The coder was a guy named Clement Ayayemi. That's a tough one to pronounce. As far as I can tell, this is the only thing he ever did on the Amiga. The graphics were done by Dominique Sablons, who was responsible for, among other things, it's funny we talked about this, but of course he did Tennis Cup 1 and Vroom, if you remember Vroom.
Yeah, that's sort of like an F1 type game, right?
Right. He also did Mortville Manor, which just came up a few times on the show that we've always talked about. And the music was done by Michel Weingradoff, who did the music in Panza, Tennis Cup 1, Mach 3, a ton of stuff, Golden Eagle.
Not a whole lot of music in this game. I guess there's about as much music in this game as there is in Panza, so that makes sense.
That's exactly what I was going to say. That's exactly what, as far as I can tell, this came out on the Amiga, the Atari ST DOS, the Amstrad CPC, and the GX 4000. I noticed that Lorcell, they almost always support MS-DOS for some reason. I noticed that on the other show.
Well, they wanted to sell software.
Yeah, me and Brent, anytime we cover something that's a really European computer, Lorcell comes up. We've done 3 or 4 different games from them. And so it's funny here, and we've come back to them again, because it's not a company you really think about when I think about big companies. But they were rocking and rolling. And I believe, as I recall, they were around till around 94, 95. So they had a pretty good run. They even worked on the Super Nintendo. So they had a decent run, all things considered. I found the price on this thing. I can't confirm this, but I found at one place, it said when this was released, it was 26 pounds.
Wow.
For this one. Yeah, well, we're used to the Spectrum show. We don't get prices.
Yeah.
So 26 pounds sounds like a zillion tons
of
pounds. So let's talk about this wacky game. It's a tennis game. Now, like Boat said, it doesn't have a lot of, it doesn't do a lot when it comes to music, but they do set a nice atmosphere, don't they, Boat?
The beginning of this game, everything that leads up to the actual start of the match is incredibly impressive.
Yeah, you start off by you're a tennis player that walks into a tennis club, and I don't mean a dud club.
No,
this club's got an upstairs. It's got like automatic doors. This is a nice club.
Yeah,
and you walk up to the desk and you can make your decision as to what you want to do. Now, I went right to singles to start off with. Now, but you can go to the options, and you really should go to the options, which will explain why. But on your first time playing this, you're gonna know if you just go out to play a match. Excuse me, you're going to walk out on the court, and you're going to notice that when you start playing, your guy will just basically run to the ball. Did you?
Well, he is computer controlled by default. Yeah.
Yeah, which I thought was odd, frankly, that they would default with that option being on. So when you walk out to play a game,
well, I mean, you got to realize we're coming from the world of Graham Gooch cricket. There are lots of sports games for the Amiga where they just don't expect you to be able to move your character. You know, they expect you to need some help.
Yeah, but tennis is a game where it seems like moving your character is literally 3/4 of the game.
It would seem that way, yes.
Yeah, that's like having a car game where you don't actually steer the car; you just shift a gear.
Hey, we're not talking about battle cars yet.
Well, there you go. Oh, no, not yet. But before we get into the actual game, it's the little touches, boating out. The tennis club you go into is nice. Then you go out on the court. The court is beautifully rendered. You come out, you meet your opponent, you shake hands. It just looks really nice. But then you actually get to the court. Now, the first thing I noticed, Boatster, when you play the game, when you start, you're on your side of the net. You see your opponent, and the net. The level that you see your opponent is a very low. The slant is low.
Yeah.
And by that I mean you can't see hardly any of his court. The net covers over half of it. And so you see the back line, and that's pretty much. And you see the doubles lines, and that's pretty much all you can see of your opponent's court.
Right.
Now, your thoughts just right out of the gate. I knew right away we were in for it because of that look. But what did you think just out of the gate on it?
Well, I knew that the viewpoint was low starting out. And I thought, well, maybe this is going to be an issue. But the thing is, it's really only an issue for the other player. You know, the full extent of your side of the court is visible. So it's not really a big deal. One thing that I noticed about this is that there is a radar screen up on the upper left side of the screen. that gives you your position, the position of the ball, the position of the opponent. You don't see that in a lot of tennis games. At least I haven't seen it in a lot of tennis games. So I thought that.
I think the reason. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So I thought that was cool. I mean, this game does so many things right. This game could have been the marquee tennis title on the Amiga. However, when I started playing the game, my opinion quickly diminished, and I'll tell you why. This game is the only tennis game that I've ever seen that adopts the Lionheart system of control, where instead of pushing the button to swing your racket and or sword, you push the button, you hold the button, and then when you release the button in combination with a direction on the joystick, actually swings your racket.
That's not uncommon for a tennis game.
I've played lots of tennis games, and I've never played a tennis game that does it that way. So I don't know what tennis games you're playing.
The feel on this one is well. I mean, that's not that uncommon, but this game feels weird. Strokes and stuff they feel off.
Yes.
To me, like and which is it doesn't need that. You know, I'm just saying, like for example, the Great Courts 2, which is my favorite tennis game on the Amiga, and you mentioned it earlier accidentally. It uses the same approach.
No,
basically.
It doesn't. The way you hit the ball is the exact same way that you hit the ball in every other tennis game, where you approach the ball, you hit the button, the person moves their racket, and it hits the ball. I played Great Courts 2 tons this week, and the control is totally different.
Well, but what I'm saying is when you hit the button and you move the stick, you shove the ball in that direction. Is what I'm saying. But this game doesn't do it the exact same way. It's kind of hard to explain.
Well, no, it's not hard to explain. It's exactly like Lionheart. It's exactly like any game where they don't give you direct control in an effort to make it more realistic and to theoretically give you more options.
I never thought I'd see the day where you would be comparing Tennis Cup 2 to Lionheart.
Well, Lionheart's the most famous game that has that control scheme.
It's the best game. This game doesn't control nearly as good as
Lionheart.
Now,
I will say that, in Lionheart's defense, doing it that way does give you a lot more different motions you can do with the sword. With this game, the advantages are not as apparent because you can control in a more conventionally controlling tennis game. You have pretty good control over where you hit the ball. I mean, you can, you push the button and you hit the stick and you hit it in one direction. What would be cool is in a way that would make this game actually useful is if they put a little gauge on there and you're sort of charging your racket by holding the button down longer would control whether you'd hit the ball further or closer, but that's not the way this works either.
I think part of it is, I just thought about this as you were talking. I think part of it is the way you approach the shot. Like as you approach the point where you're going to swing, it's goofy. It doesn't seem right. That's all I can say about it. And you don't feel like I don't feel like I've got good control. And also, it's hard to line up a shot. Right. The way the ball lands. I want to get back to the angle of the court too. And I can't help but keep comparing this to Great Courts 2, but I'm going to. Great Courts 2 has the angle where the player in the far courts is up higher on the screen. The angle is a much larger angle, and it does make a big difference in terms of lining up your shots and in terms of being able to see the ball come off the other guy's racket. You mentioned this thing has a radar. And to be honest with you, I'd forgotten about the radar because I never looked at it. I never had time to even look up there. And so, I mean, listen, if you're really good at this game, maybe that radar would come in handy. I mean, but did you use the radar that much? Did it help?
Oh my gosh, no. I mean, this is like the radar it's like the radar in a lot of games where the action is so fast that if you take your eyes off the court for a second, then you're dead. Yeah. It's over.
That's exactly what I mean. I mean, we agree on that fully. The radar, it's there, and I'm sure they put it there because of the angle. Mm-hmm. But it's not. It doesn't get the job done. To be honest with you. And so what you get here, at least for me, now I can't speak for Bud, I'll let him speak for himself. What you get here is a game that doesn't really control the shots well, and you also have trouble seeing the ball. And so what that means is you get a tennis beating. Now I used to be on the tennis team in high school, believe it or not, Boat, and I've suffered a few beatings, but I mean I felt like I had a fighting chance, mm-hmm. In this one, it was just a relentless beating. I also noticed that occasionally my guy would there's an animation for when your guy dives for a ball, and occasionally it just looks like he takes a big old belly flop, which I also did that when I played tennis. The old belly dive,
Yeah.
a big kerplump. It's because a guy like me, you can't dive too far.
Well, it's like me
You
when
just sort of
when
flop.
I used to play baseball, I dove into first base almost every time. You have to do that. That's the only way you can achieve maximum velocity.
And dirty.
Yeah.
You get as dirty as you can. Now, what did you think about the difficulty, Boat? And there are different levels of difficulty, but my God, I went on the lowest one and got murdered.
I felt like in this game, if I could get a volley going, I was doing pretty well. Like if I could actually return the ball more than once in a particular set, or what do you call it when it's just it's less than a set? It's just a thing, you know, a game. Yeah.
You mean a point?
A point. That's it. Within a particular point. If I could,
yeah. So you're below game at this point.
Right.
You just want to try to be successful at one point.
Yeah. If I could return the ball twice to the computer opponent, I'd be like, yeah, I did pretty well there. I did pretty well that time.
Yeah.
And that's not what you want out of a tennis game. You want to feel like you have a shot at least winning a game. I realize that, you know, winning a match, you probably have to practice some. But winning a game, that's the bare minimum, you know.
Something else I failed to mention, I want to go into is the serve. All right. In Great Courts 2, the serve is more complicated, but it's much more fulfilling, and you could actually get an ace because you can see the court. Another aspect of this angle of this court is that you can't. It's almost impossible to get an ace or serve well. I mean, you sort of have to lay the ball in like a jerk. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. Which I didn't like that.
And there's no, you know, it's not like. I think it was it's in Great Courts 2, you've got that little bullseye, right, that travels up and down the opposite side.
Like in a big circle, yeah.
And that makes you feel like, hey, I actually have some control over what's going on here, and if I practice this, then I can get pretty good at it. Versus with this game, you get nothing. You get no indication of where you're going.
Me and Brent used to play Great Courts 2, and that was, and we would both have our moments of greatness with, you know, serving. Because it, much like in real tennis, it sort of comes in waves where you're in the zone, you know. The serves on this, you know, they didn't do it for me. Now I will say, when you lose, and you will, there's a great scene at the end. There's a cut scene where the two players come together, and the winning player's going like, "Yay!" and the losing player just goes,
yeah, just hangs his head.
And he is shame. It's like, you suck. And I felt like that when I was playing this. I just ducked my head. I'm like, well, I've never won a set. I have won I have.
And go ahead.
You know, and that's it.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, it's hard. I mean, this is just yet another example of a game that we've talked about on this show where the graphics and the presentation are top notch and the gameplay just falls flat. And it's a shame because, you know, because Lauriciel, however you say it, they could churn out some great stuff. And I just feel like that they dropped the ball at the last minute here by building this whole experience and not filling it up with a good game.
You know, it's funny, if you combined the cut scenes and the atmosphere of this with the actual gameplay of Panza, you've got a winning game right there. And this game has, unlike Panza, this game's got a lot of options. You can change difficulty. There's a mode that you can go into that's split screen. You can turn that on or off in single player. It's got support for two people. Pretty cool. You know, so you can have your doubles in there. It's got some things going for it, you know, make your own character and stuff, but if the gameplay's not there, to me, it's just sort of pointless.
Right.
You know,
and so many of these create a character modes, you always come out of it thinking, okay, well, if I give this guy 5 more points on backspin, what exactly does that mean? And how do I alter my gameplay to make that happen? You know,
I didn't fool with that hardly at all. I went in there and played it. When I played this the first time I messed with it, it didn't do anything for me. The training is kind of, you know, the training's kind of fun, but I mean, here's the problem again. It's just, if the game is no good, nothing's good, and it all stems from it's all in the same court. You know, not so good.
Now let me ask you a question. Do you think that this is the best looking tennis game on the Amiga?
Well, I haven't played every tennis game.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that we've played at least one that I can think of right offhand, and it was that weird, like Prince of Persia style animation. Remember that one? So obviously that one looked horrible in terms of realism.
I would say in terms of the way it looks, this probably does look better than Great Courts. It's got more panache, you know. It's got the sound is good, you know. The crowd is good. I like that part of it. It's just they couldn't get the gameplay. It's funny. I just had a look at Great Courts one, or excuse me, Tennis Cup 1, I should say. You got me on it, and it looks real similar. I don't know what they changed. And like I said, I usually don't play the games because I'm afraid we're gonna go back to them.
Right.
But it looks a lot like. Now, one thing I did look up, get this, Boatster, there was actually sort of a sequel to this game. Believe it or not.
Was it called Tennis Cup 3?
No. It was called Davis Cup Tennis.
Really?
Do you remember the Davis Cup?
I thought that was a NASCAR event.
No, Davis Cup was an event. I think that's an event where you represent a nation.
Okay.
I think that works. Like there's teams. It's been a long time. So I was into tennis back when I was a kid, but it's been a long time. Anyway, this came out. Now get this one, Boatster. It came out in '92 in Japan for the PC Engine. It was on a Who card.
Wow.
So I could actually play this thing. And on this one, you could have up to 4 people play, which would be kind of cool. But I mean, again, it's sort of the same basic gimmick,
right? If they didn't change the control style, then it's a non-starter. You know, it doesn't matter if you got 16 players out there.
I looked at some reviews on this. Talk about all over the map. So Lemon gave this a 7.54. Amiga Format gave this an 80%. Amiga Power gave it a 72. And then the ratings go down from there. AUI gave this a 67. CU Amiga gave it a 67. And Amiga Computing gave it a 37.
Right.
And they trashed it.
Well, it's no wonder that, you know, Lemon, they always have high scores. But the other guys, I would put definitely in line with them. We did get some Discord reviews here. And our people tend to agree with the magazines. Tennis Cup 2, Chris Folds says, before my review, I wish to formally apologize for putting this on the list. It was supposed to be Great Courts 2, but I got the names muddled up.
Folds, you idiot.
So Chris Folds was the Amigos Game Selection Committee member that suggested this game and then was subsequently voted on by the Game Selection Committee, who must have, as a group, collectively misremembered this game as well.
Well, you remember that Amigos Plays I was telling you about? Guess what I thought I was playing that night?
Was it tennis?
Great Courts 2. So I can't. So I unidiofy Folds because I did the same exact thing.
Okay, he goes on to write, anyway, what the deuce did Laurie Ciel think bringing a game like this out in 1992, a year after the genre-defining Super Tennis on the SNES? All they had to do was make a clone. Everything is just a bit wonky with this game. The viewpoint, the difficulty level, the sluggish controls, the total inability to move on the baseline when serving, the overcomplicated menu systems, the mega slow loading times on disk, and the lack of fast and fierce action make an awkward experience when playing it in 2020. And I believe, did Laurie Ciel do Super Tennis on the SNES?
You're out of my area of expertise there, Boatster.
Okay, no, they didn't. I was going to say, if they did both of these, and I mean, how could you possibly mess this up so bad if you did Super, but they didn't. Super Tennis was a different developer. So anyway, Folds, he didn't like it. 5 out of 10. Pixels at Dawn, our other Discord reviewer, says, a very nice looking tennis game if you ditch the split screen view, but unfortunately not an awfully playable one. It suffers from the same problem a lot of tennis games have. The angle is so shallow you don't have enough time to react to shots, and the controls make it hard to judge when to swing, too. I had a couple of decent rallies. The action could get pretty hot and heavy near the net, and the menu system is nice, but sadly the Amiga already had better tennis games by this point. 4 out of 10.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this game for me, I might even go a little bit lower. This one might be a 3 out of 10. The only saving grace is the, well, no, I'll tell you what. I'll give this game a 5 out of 10, and I'll tell you why. They do offer a pretty neat robo like practice mode where you got the ball launching machine out there.
Yeah.
And it's,
did you try that?
Yeah. And of course, I was just as bad as returning from a real player.
That's what I was saying. The training, you suck. it's like you suck in space and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
And there's not enough balls that machine can shoot to make you better.
Right.
You know?
Right. And so, I mean, I will give this, I'll bump it up a couple points just because, like I said, the presentation is good. It does come with a lot of modes and options and things. But yeah, this is a 5 out of 10 game for me, for sure.
Yeah, it's a missed opportunity. And maybe if Laura Lascelles would have came up with a third one and listened to some people and tweak some stuff. And I also remembered that the load times, I remember mentioning that when I did the Amigos play on this, I'd always heard that the load times on this were really, really bad. So, yeah, and I really, the great chords too, they're not great.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, the load times suck off disc in general.
Yeah.
They're no good.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Aaron, it's time to talk about what's been going on our YouTube channel this week. We've had lots of action up on the YouTube channel. Why don't we start with you and Brent doing Windows 3.x on ARG Presents.
I will say, if I got anything done this week, I got Windows 3.x installed on my DOS box, which I wasn't sure I could do. But Brent actually picked a real winner this week. This Castle of the Winds was a really good roguelike game. I have to say, I'd never heard of this, and it's got quite a following.
Mm-hmm.
And it really was a remarkable achievement. I was real impressed, frankly. Brent came through on this one. I picked Myst. It's funny, as a younger man, I never liked Myst at all. But as an adult, I can appreciate the artistic endeavor that it was, and also the technical achievement that it was.
Sure.
When it was produced, and I watched a documentary on the two guys that put it together. It's quite eye-opening. They're from your neck of the woods, Bo, in terms of the Mac. They did a couple smaller games in the Mac before they tackled this big game.
Yeah, the HyperCard was the predecessor of all these kind of point and click adventure type games, and I watched that documentary when you told me about it, and I highly recommend it. It's amazing how many copies Myst sold. You know, for a time it was the top selling game of all time.
For a long time,
and it truly was the game that brought the CD-ROM generation to home. You know.
You know, the funny thing about this boat, and really the main reason I picked it, is because I have no memory of this being on Windows 3.1.
Mm-hmm.
That's astounding to me. And I also have very little memory of anyone having a CD-ROM for Windows 3.1. Most of the CD-ROMs that I didn't have one because they were so super expensive. So the people that bought this game were probably pretty well off, because Windows 3.1 and a CD-ROM, I don't think any of my friends had one for 3.1, and I don't think anyone even thought about it, to be honest with you. I mean, it was early days of the CD-ROM.
You're talking to somebody that had one.
On a PC?
Yes.
Oh, really?
So the first modern computer my dad bought was a 100 megahertz Pentium. It ran 3.1. It had a CD-ROM drive and a tape backup. Oh, yeah.
You must have been there in that sweet spot.
Well, it was right before Windows 95 was released.
Right.
In fact, I would pester my dad for, about a year after we bought it, because we got the computer, everything was great, and then instantly it was out of date because we didn't have Windows 95. So.
Yeah, but anyway, I had a good time looking back on Myst. I lost my voice part of the way through this, and I almost lost it last Friday too. I'm feeling a lot better today.
Good.
But so that always sucks. But we still soldiered on, but we made it through.
Yeah. Now I've released a bevy of sort of Let's Play videos for both the ZX Spectrum and the Nintendo Entertainment System. I won't go over all these, but I did want to talk briefly about Ninja Scooter Simulator. Have you heard of Ninja Scooter Simulator, Aaron?
No, I've not heard
This
of
was not a game that I had high hopes for, to tell you the truth. However, once I started playing this thing, the action is real. Imagine like Excite Bike, except you're a freaking ninja and you're on a scooter. And you've got your hat turned around backwards like ninjas do. You're wearing sunglasses and you're driving through parking garages that have signs that say, "Hate the hype" on them.
Wacky.
Yeah.
I'd say I like the idea of this. This is like the guy, he's on his way to play Ninja Golf.
That's right. And he's on his way to play Ninja Golf, and now, did you have a scooter back in the day, Aaron?
Oh God, no. We made fun of kids that rode scooters. Those were the biggest dorks around.
See,
now my kids got one. They made a big comeback. But yeah, scooters were nerds.
I was coming of age, I think, in the late 80s when the first sort of scooter renaissance happened. But I never had a cool scooter. My scooters were always lame. So
yeah, scooters. The same guys that had scooters, their moms would have made them wear helmets, which that was a no-no when I was a kid. That was like, I am a huge geek.
Oh yeah.
But now, of course, now you can't do anything with that helmet. But times changed. We were idiots.
We had a Coco show debut this past week, Aaron, all about Berserk, otherwise known as Haywire. What did you think about this one?
I enjoyed this game more than you, as I recall. I'm a big Berserk fan from the arcade. It talked, the arcade version, not this one. I thought this was a pretty good play on Berserk. And I remember when I got this back in the day, I was like, man, I've got something that puts everyone else's Berserk to shame. This is way better.
Yeah.
Because it looked, with the exception that your guy's too big, it looked a lot like the arcade.
Absolutely.
It's not perfect. It doesn't have the maps that the original arcade version doesn't have the audio. But it's still pretty good games when you just play some Berserk.
Yeah. In addition, I looked at Mike Tyson's Punch-Out for the NES. We were doing some beat 'em ups, and I was like, well, let's do something a little bit different. And man, that's a great game. I don't care what you say.
Oh God, yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? I love it.
And then I had to look at Renegade and Target Renegade for the Nintendo just to compare to the ZX Spectrum versions. You can get all my thoughts on that. And before we move on, Aaron, you uncovered a Amigos plays from far in the past. You want to talk about this one?
Well, this is an ARG plays that I shot. When did we? Was Dragster on our second?
I think this
game?
was episode 2 of ARG Presents.
Yeah, I had done it's funny because I remember when we were getting into this game, and I was like, Dragster, this game sucked. I remember when it was out. And when we covered it on the show, this is another example of the show making something work, because I went back and played it, and I'm like, this is crap. And I watched a guy who did a video on how to play it. And because I never understood what the heck was going on, And I tried it. I watched the video. I tried it. I'm like, wait a minute. I got it. And suddenly, I'm playing this thing for like hours. I remember being super late for work one day because I was up super late playing this game. And so when I recorded this Amigo Plays, or ARG Presents Plays, whatever you want to call it, it ended up being the exact same day that Todd Rogers got kicked out of Twin Galaxies, and this was his big game. Right.
I remember that.
It was funny how that worked, but I think the best time I get on here is like 668, and I think I mentioned my all-time best time, which I have not beaten. But I just found this. I was doing some sprucing of the playlist. I'm like, what the hell is this? Never released. I just think I'll put it up.
Cool.
Play Dragster. It's cool.
Yeah, it's a good game. All right, Aaron. Well, as we wind the show down, I do want to thank everybody for watching live on Twitch. We have quite a crew in the old chat today. We got Picard is here, L. Curtis B. I actually have moved out of the window that had the chat on here. Edvin is here. Pixels at Dawn doing some great modding in the house. We've got quite the crowd. I want to thank all of you for being here live. We do tape the show every Friday, and as long as we remain sort of under lockdown, we're going to be recording at a more Euro-friendly time, maybe starting around 3 o'clock in the afternoon for us here. I believe that is 7 p.m. in the UK, though there is a time change coming up in the UK, so who knows what BST will bring to the future. But anyway, and Real Refy joining us too, an uncommon sight here on Twitch. And so anyway, I also want to thank all of our Twitch subscribers. You can subscribe to us on Twitch, get the same benefits that you do as being a Patreon supporter. We want to thank Buck Owens, Chris Folds, Christian Roussel, Mohawk Mall, GoToGoSub, Retro Jerry, Uber Scuba Diver, G. Vebke, Frodo NL, Real Joe the Zombie, Still Adolescing, Macintosh Librarian, Rushi MSX, Mitsuyama, Darkwing 602, Kilobytes and Caffeine, Honored Shadow, Wing Chun Wolf. Thank you guys so much for supporting us on Twitch by becoming a subscriber. And, Aaron, the moment you've been waiting for, the grand reveal of last week's Patreon song challenge.
It feels like last year, doesn't it?
It does. It's been a long week.
This has been the longest week in the history of the earth.
I agree. Well, the name of the song was California Girls by the Beach Boys.
That's the easiest one you've done for a long time.
It is. And we had several correct guesses, including Pac Billy, Boss Man, Paul Harrington. He was number one with a bullet that time. Gary Heather got it, Jason Warrens, and Eric Nelson. You know, I was listening to Pixel Gaiden. You ever listen to that show? That's Eric's podcast.
Are you kidding? I never, ever miss it, ever.
Well, you know, what's his name? Cassidy. He does this thing where he reads he has an adjective generator. He was reading names in a funny accent. I was thinking maybe I could adopt that. I could sing songs in a funny accent with the adjective generator. Just combine everything into one. No. That's my normal accent is what you hear.
Yeah, they've done their Patreons with wrestling intros. They've done them with cars. Very clever.
Very clever guys. All right, Aaron. If you know the name of this week's Patreon song, you can send me an email at john@amigospodcast.com, and I will read your name as a winner on the show. And of course, before I do this, I want to thank Chris Folds one more time and the Amigos Game Selection Committee for choosing Tennis Cup 2 for us to play.
You know, before you start singing this, it just occurred to me, I could actually just mute you.
You could.
I don't have to endure
now
this.
That you're not physically in my presence, which I know is killing you. You can mute me. You can do anything you want. It's like that Barbie girl song. Here we go. Tech Mage, Zebedee's Magic Roundabout, Jurgen, Mr. Koala, Daniel Williams, Bernard Lucas, Jerry Dennington, Zorglub, Commodore Kid, Bjork, Van Goodmanson, Reflection, Simon Ledge, Captain Crispy, Kilobytes and Caffey, Mike W. Decker, Threepwood, Gary Heather, Free Lunch, Kate Fox, David Pickford, Cameron Armstrong, Andy Jones, Lobsterminator, 10-Minute Amiga Retrocast, Bernard Quinn, Retroman Cave, Tim Drew, Simon Rose, Joseph Harrison, Kyle Eder, Rob O'Hare, Howard Nibbs, Matthew Larimore, Andy Craig Chonzo, Colin 419, Bark Bid, Roland Burke, Andrew Muckshow, The Zombie, Leaf Kelon, Alan Kebab, Checote, Level Lord, John Marshall, Matthew Perron, Ricky DeRocha, Creepy Dead Boy, Vicky CTC, The Slow, Noah, Stefan Sorgord, Mortensen, Edvin, Helen Blendo 75, Christopher Hassel, Ravi Abbott, Chris Waltz, Dreamcatcher, Lauren Giroux, Graham Bebke, Lane Denson, Adam Burr, Battersby, O'Brien's Retro and Vintage, Gary Hucker, C. Brian Jones, Paul Harrington, Duncan Styles, Tapes from the Crypt, Josh Nan, Adam Bradley, Joe Rullo, THT, Eric Nelson, Kim Tommy, Humbert Starr, Daniel Bingston, Bruden Barracuda, Darren Coles, Jason Warrens, Pixels at Dawn, and Kjolbjorn Barman. What'd you think of that?
Sounded great, Boat.
I can see that bit coming a mile away. I can see your tradition of doing bits at Amigo Studios East will continue with full speed as we do these shows remotely.
That's right, it's a bit.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for listening again. And next week, Aaron, it's platformer time on the Amigos. It only comes around.
Time for you to unveil your hate again.
Listen, man, I love all platformers on the Amiga, and they're all top quality. Leander will be no exception. Pixels at Dawn, Amigos Game Selection Committee member, has suggested this, and it was voted on by the crew. Have you played Leander?
I don't think so. That's a weird name for a game.
Yeah, it is weird.
That sounds like somebody that would win like America's Got Talent or something.
This is right up there with Apidia for the Don't Buy Me sweepstakes in terms of names.
Apidia was a cool sounding name. Leander.
Yeah, it sort of sounds like a bread. Maybe I'm thinking of the bagel brand.
It sounds like a scent of the spray you get.
Mm-hmm.
This is Leander. It's like a purple, but it's purple.
Yeah.
It's sort of like lavender.
Yeah. It's like lavender and Linder's bagels mixed together. So join us for that if you think that sounds interesting. All right, guys. We will see you next week. Until next time. Adios. Oh.
How do we do, Boat?
We did all right. We made it through. We only had one little hiccup where you went out for a second, but then you came back, so it was all good. All right. Nothing wrong with Leander, the title. What's right with it, Real Reffy? Leander. Leander, when you're not strong. You could do that with it, I guess. You know who sang that song? Who wrote Leander? Who wrote Lean on Me? It was a guy from West Virginia.
Lean on me.
Yeah.
Was it? I thought it was like a big time guy.
You know somebody called Leander, so you're biased, Real Reffy. If I had a friend named Apidia, I'd probably think it was a cool name too. I'm looking it up.
I'm gonna take you by surprise and make you realize Leander.
Yeah,
right there.
There's no end.
Boston.
Bill Withers. Yeah. Bill Withers from West Virginia wrote "Lean on Me."
Super famous.
Thank you.
He did.
Thank you, Pix.
Didn't he also do "Ain't No Sunshine When You're Gone"?
Yes.
Was that him?
Yeah, both great songs. All right, yeah. I'm gonna visit the facilities and refill my water and return.
Is it fancy water?
No, this is my special bottle. Look at that.
It's vodka, isn't it?
Contigo. It's all vodka all the time.
All right, carry on. I got nowhere to go.
Here's a good game name. Okay. Boat's Magic Forest. Discuss.
It's a place that would suck. Get out of here. How's everybody doing tonight? I haven't got to chat with anybody, so I'm going to chat now. It's chat time. Let's see what we got in here. I hope everyone is safe and secure wherever you're at. Oh. I'm sure if you're in America, well, I don't know what you're thinking right now. We're getting ready to go through it, I think. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right, man. Gary, are you guys getting it bad down there? Third year of Cocoa Talk, eh? Nice. I may try to up my score, Curtis. I played way too much of Starship Chameleon this week, I must tell you. That game's infuriating. It's not too difficult until you get to the point where you get killed, then you lose.
I'll tell you, I was thinking of some good game names. I'll tell you what's a great game name. Shadow of the Beast. That's a freaking great name for a game.
Yeah, I agree with that one.
What's another great name?
I like Blood Money.
Blood Money's good.
Psygnosis.
Although
great...
you couldn't name that anymore because there are ethnic overtones that go with it these days.
Really?
Yeah, look it up.
Everything. It's the same reason I can't go okay.
Yeah.
Because some guy somewhere said I can't just cause.
Just cause. There was another game I was thinking of that had a great title. A lot of not great names have great titles. I think Lionheart's not a horrible game. Lionheart's a cool name. Cool name for a game.
You were killing. You take every opportunity to kill my game.
No.
That's okay. You're killing that game.
Bill's Tomato Game, a great name. True.
No, horrible. That's horrible.
Most of my favorite games have dopey names, like Mr. Do. It doesn't get much worse than Mr. Do, but it's an awesome game. Super Mario Brothers, not a great name.
Zookeeper. These are all lame.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, Zookeeper, horrible name.
It's awesome. You know?
Yeah. But like a game like Altered Beast, that sounds rad, but it's lame. All right, so our Sinclair is next. Get ready for wild. Oh, wait a minute. I'm going to check my phone.
I got to get me another sody to get through this one.
So,
what do you figure on this in about 3 minutes, Bode, and we're out?
So, West Virginia State is moving all of its classes online for the remainder of the year. Of course, I'm already there since I only teach online. Okay, so...
You know what? The Chud.
I do know the Chud.
I've been getting messages from the Chud. They really screwed the Chud. You know, he works at Marshall in the ID room. You know, he does the badges and stuff and helps people set their badges up. So everyone in his office is gone. And they purposely made it so he's the only one that has to show up. And he's covering like 100, 200 people a day.
Do you think it's because everybody hates him?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. They hate him there. They hate him. They treat him like garbage.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this before, but he refuses to leave.
Yeah, he's furious. This might be the thing that does it. And you got to remember, Chad almost died late last year. So they've got a guy whose immune system is probably not the best.
Right.
So
I hate that. I hate that for him. I mean, I know his job is just the worst. I know he hates it.
He hates every job he's ever had, but he's got a good reason to hate this one. I'm getting a soda pop. You notice I changed chairs, Boat?
Yeah, you took my advice. I'm glad you did.
This chair is held together by glue and duct tape.
Yeah, the remainder of the school year, Edvin. Hopefully, it won't extend beyond that. And of course, in the public schools, who knows what's happening. I've been real lucky. Go ahead.
No one knows what's happening in general.
Those are true words.
Every day I just wake up, I'm like, well, let's see what fresh hell's going to happen this morning. It's like, oh, okay. And I'm a pretty upbeat guy, Bo.
I know you are. You're probably the most upbeat guy I know.
Thank you. I think you enjoy the backstory in this game, Bo.
For battle cars?
Yeah. It's a deep dive.
Do you know that song "Take a Letter, Maria"?
Take a letter, Maria.
Right.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that song the other day, and it's sort of like a weird thing to have a song about, because it's just about like this. He's like telling his secretary to write a letter to his wife that he's leaving her.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing to have. Is that? Oh, I must have missed that part. Is that the kicker in the last verse?
That's the way you got to do it. Yeah. Maria is the girl, man. He's going to start a new life.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. There's also another song I was thinking about. Young Girl. You know that song? Young Girl, get out of my mind.
Oh, God.
Are you familiar with that? That was a striking rendition.
Are you having a stroke? What was that?
But I was just thinking, boy, you wouldn't be able to sing that these days. These are the words of that song. Young girl, get out of my mind. My love for you is way out of line. Better run, girl. You're much too young, girl. Sorry. That wouldn't fly today.
It will never top You're 16, you're beautiful, and you're mine.
That's true.
That's my personal favorite.
Ringo can get away with it, though.
You got that right. He pulls it off. Love Ringo. He's the only Beatle that held true to his original awesomeness. Yeah, I'm on Fire is also creepy, Rushi. You're right.
Is that the Springsteen song?
Retro Jerry, you got that right, pal. Yes. And I was out in the backyard just kind of walking around just to make sure I could still walk. This ain't good for your health, Bo, because you can't do anything.
You can go out in your yard.
It's been rainy and horrible all week.
Well, yeah, but that's got nothing to do with anything. It's not like you were running marathons before all this started.
Yeah, but I was actually leaving the house and doing a lot of activity. You know? I did clean the fridge.
There you go.
Laundry. Yeah. So I got something going on. Yeah, man. Plus, Jerry, if you're like us, we grabbed some extra stuff, for later. And it's like, when will it be now? Soon. So we just went ahead and ate some of it. That's not, it's not good. before I came in here to do the show, Tree's like, man, I think I want Taco Bell for dinner. I'm like, wait a minute, I thought we weren't going out. She's like, Taco Bell.
Yeah, I knew that wouldn't last long.
Well, listen, it's going to be
It's hard to get off fast food, man. It's an addiction. I used to have it before I lost all that weight. I ate fast food all the time. It was awful.
Well, I mean, listen, I love like a hamburger and stuff, but also like not being deathly sick.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
there's it's funny how that works.
All right.
Pisses me off. Yeah.
All right. Get not pissed off because we're getting ready to start the show. All right. I guess that's your look saying you're no longer pissed off. It bothers me that I can't get things exactly the way I want them. Hold on. I don't like towering over you. Most people that met me in Ireland thought I was super short because you always sit higher than I do. They were stunned and amazed that I was tall.
We're about the same height.
Yeah, you're a little taller than I am, but
I?
When we sit on the show, you always sit. See, did you hear that sound on the stream, guys? Did that come through? Thank you for the sub, James. Okay, good. I'm glad that didn't come through on the stream. I have, and thank you, James, for the sub. I have the notifications set up to show those on there, but not the sound because the sound is loud and annoying. Okay. You ready?
We get it all cleared out. All
okay,
right.
man. All right. So here we go. Support our Sinclair and listen ad-free. Go to patreon.com/our Sinclair. Our Sinclair is also brought... I'm shutting it down. We had that skip in the thing. I'm going to have to play it and let it get its stuff together and then start it again. Here we go again. Support our Sinclair and listen ad-free. Go to patreon.com/our Sinclair. Our Sinclair is also brought to you by the Div MMC Future from thefuturewas8bit.com. Quit waiting on tapes and fooling around with WAV files and load your games instantly with the Div MMC Future, a jumperless, switchless SD storage solution for all ZX spectrums, from the 16K all the way to the +3. Get yours today at thefuturewas8bit.com. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Sinclair. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today, Aaron, we're going to be talking about battle cars.
Oh.
Now, I know that you are a student of the fine art of Demolition Derby.
That's true. I do love me a Demolition Derby.
Have you been to a Demolition Derby in person before?
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah, many times. Yeah.
Where do you go to see such an event?
The last one I went to was in Winfield at the Putnam County Fair, but it was not a good one. I've been to two of those. The best ones I've been to were up the sticks of Kentucky for one of their fairs. Yeah.
So what is it that attracts you to? And for those of people that don't know, can you describe what a Demolition Derby is?
Sure. Basically, a bunch of goofs get a bunch of junk cars. They all get together in this big muddy area, and then they try to destroy each other's cars.
Okay.
Without killing anybody. That's the goal.
Now, what is it that attracts you to the Demolition Derby?
Well, you know, I've never been a big car guy, so I think it's my lack of understanding on how a car works makes me want them to die, and so, and also just I have a lust for wholesale wanton destruction, and so I just love a good car crash. When I was a kid, every once in a blue moon, they would show a big Demolition Derby from like Detroit or Wisconsin, and these were the big. They would have the big, huge bowl, like the inside of an arena would be a big round circle, and these were the awesome ones, where cars just come barreling out and just slaughter each other.
So it's not even an oval track at that point, right? It's just like an open arena, like where they hold a rodeo or something.
Right. It's just a big circle of dirt, and then huge. and people can get up a lot of speed. The problem with going to a local one is you're not going to get the kind of experience that you would get on on TV, because number one, I don't think they do those anymore because people get killed. But two, they'll, like in Winfield, for example, the track was not very big, and secondly, it was just literally a big patch of rectangle of dirt, and they would hose the dirt down so much that the cars couldn't build up any speed.
Right.
And so the collisions were super low end, which is lame. You want to see, I don't want anybody to get hurt, but I want to see some stuff get smashed.
As far as I can tell from the demolition derbies I've seen, there's not exactly a roll cage built into these cars to protect the safety of the drivers.
Well, they do actually put safety measures in them. I used to watch this great show. I've never found it to download the whole thing or buy it. It was called Carpocalypse. I've mentioned it on ARG one time because we covered a Test Drive Eve of Destruction, which is a game all about car crashes and demolition derbies and crazy races. And there's footage from Carpocalypse on there. And it was a show about these demolition derby guys that met every week, and they knew each other. So it's sort of like a combination of show about how they built their car, their tactics. They were all crazy, I love that show. But they actually, you have to do certain things to secure your car. You have to you can't just grab a car. I mean, in the old days, probably not, but now you have to take the car, like move the gas tank, do some other stuff to make the car less deadly, reinforce the interior of it so you don't get killed. So it's not that bad.
I've seen cars on trailers that look like they're on their way to demolition derbies.
Yeah.
They did not appear to have any of those safety measures installed. It looked like an old burn-up Pete. Maybe so, maybe so. Now, I know that you probably never had any great desire to be behind the wheel in a demolition derby, right?
No, I did want to do it. Yeah,
you
absolutely.
Did? Really?
Oh yeah.
Now,
yeah.
if you were behind the wheel, or if you were trying to give advice to an aspiring demolition derby driver, what are some tips to secure success in demolition derby?
Number one tip: never go forward. That's the number one tip. Always lead with your rear end. And what you want is one of these 70s cars, like a Lincoln or something that's like a big, old, huge behind in it.
Mm-hmm.
That way you can smash that up and the car will still go.
Yeah.
And so those would be my tips right there. You definitely want to lead with your rear.
Yeah. You need a real boat of car to do that.
Okay. And because little stuff like the electrical can screw up your race real quick if something just gets knocked off.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Aaron, let's talk about this week's game, which is all about wanton destruction, battle cars.
It is. It's about destruction. So right away when we looked into this, the name. I love the names, and battle cars that tickle my fancy. And then I looked who published this. I don't know if you looked at who published it. It's published by Games Workshop Limited.
Right, the Warhammer people.
Excuse me. That's right. So that triggered something in me. So first thing I did before we get into the game, let's talk about the actual game this is based on, which is a game called Battle Cars.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Have you heard of this game?
When I was just doing the research for the show, I just read that it was based on a tabletop game, correct?
Right. Well, I haven't played Battle Cars. In fact, I wasn't aware of it. It's also known as Combat Cars. I think over in Europe it may have been called Combat Cars, or maybe in America. It came out a year before Battle Cars, the game, in '83. And what you've got here is a game where it's a combat game in cars. Now, the first combat game I remember hearing about in a car was called Car Wars. If you recall that from way, way back, I think Car Wars is a TSR game, but don't hold me back.
A TSR game, like a pen and paper, like Dungeons and Dragons game.
That's right.
Okay.
I've played Car Wars,
mm-hmm.
and the premise was similar. You get in a car and you race, and you try to blow up your opponent. And you set your car up, and however you want to get it out, And this one, I assume that Battle Cars, the pen and paper game or the board game, I should say, is the same. So I guess Games Workshop was like, screw this, let's put this sucker on a computer, and lo and behold, it came to pass. And in 1984, Slug developed this game for Games Workshop. It was get this, Boat. The guy that actually programmed this was Julian Gollop. We've talked about this guy.
Oh yeah, legend.
Times. He did Chaos, Lords of Chaos, XCOM.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all the XCOM games. Laser Squad. He's considered one of the king dogs of programming. Certainly one of the top dogs on the spectrum.
Yeah.
So this game's got a pedigree for sure when it comes to that. Now, what is this game? Well, it's a good question because it was not an easy question to answer to even get this game to come up. And I don't blame the game. I blame my lack of Spectrum knowledge. It took me a while to understand how this thing works. This is one of those games that sort of loads in sections, isn't it, Bode?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, for example, there's several different race types in this. There's like a career or a circuit type race. Then you've got a race that's sort of like a demolition derby where you just get a bunch of cars in a bigger area. And then you've got a race where you go through town. And then you've also got a car designer. And they're basically 4 different programs on the tape.
Right.
And so I had a lot of fun getting all that to load up, but I did get it all to load. I was able to try all of it. How did you fare, Bo? Did you have any trouble getting all this stuff to come up on yours?
Yeah, I got all the modes to load. I had to load a different version. Most of the time I use the TZX file, I believe, whenever I'm loading these things up, but I had to shift over to the TAP version. And I think that it has something to do with the way that the actual programs load within itself, yeah.
I use this crazy emulator that literally emulates, like it shows a tape deck.
Wow.
And you put the tape in, and then so I'd hit play. So, I mean, it was hardcore. I've used this thing a few times when I have these trickier games.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a reminder that in an age where we've got all the easy SD solutions and all that crap, that this, in the old days, it took a lot more effort just to get this stuff to load.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was a hard reminder. So let's talk about the different modes in this boat that come up. For one thing, what you're not going to see on the opening screen or any screen is the ability to reconfigure your controls. We'll get into that in a minute. So, as I mentioned before, you've basically got several different modes. You've got like a circuit and where you could race another racer or you could race against time, like a time attack.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got your Demolition Derby mode where it's just like an arena battle. And then you've got the run through the city menu where you're going to run to the city, and then lastly you've got a car designer. I mean, or excuse me, you've got an editor. How about that?
I think it's a designer. I would call it a designer.
Did you try the editor at all?
Oh, absolutely. That was the most fun part of the game.
The editor is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Frank. Let's talk about that first, Boat. The editor, this game comes with about 10 cars that you can pick from.
Yeah, because it's two. I think it's 2 rows of 5. I think there's a full 10 cars in there.
Each of them have a cool name, and then you have to pick the car you want if you're playing another mode. In this mode, you can basically copy one of these cars and then edit it. Or I think you can even start from fresh. And what you're doing when you edit these things is literally putting in the payload and whatnot.
Right.
Do you want a flamethrower? How many missiles do you want in the car? Stuff like that. And the way the cars are presented on the screen, pretty impressive, isn't it, Boat?
It is. It looks like a blueprint style design where it's like an exploded diagram. Well, it's not an exploded diagram, but it's like the car is transparent and you see the insides, and as you equip your car with different weapons, you actually see them go into the various compartments of the car. It's really cool. Yeah,
it's pretty impressive. So if you want to go in there and mess around with that designer thing, it's pretty fun. Again, it loads up as a separate program. So the first thing I tried, I'm guessing you tried the same thing, Boat, was the very first option, which is like the circuit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wanted to, of course, I didn't want to play against the time because what's the fun of that? That's no good. So I played against the computer. Now, this is when I was first introduced to the controls of absolute suck. Now, this game was made with the actual ZX in mind.
The 48K in mind.
Yeah, the 48K. So it even came with these. In fact, I think was it Rushi that had the actual box set of this?
Yeah.
And showed these off, but someone put up a scan of the actual controller overlays. We didn't have these. So we had to. But thank God they put that up there because I was like, oh, just to start the game, I was like, what in God's name am I doing? This game also uses a lot of weird key combinations. Like some of them involve like holding down the caps lock and stuff. Weird stuff. So you control. Basically, there are controller buttons that basically rotate your car. Then you've got accelerate and a deaccelerate. Mm-hmm. And that's it. You go. Now.
Well, you've also got buttons that fire all your weapons.
Oh, I haven't got to the weapons.
Okay.
Yet.
Okay.
So that's how you control the car. Okay. Now it doesn't sound that complicated, does it, Bo?
No. On the face of it, it seems pretty simple.
I will say the very first race I had, I wanted to drop kick this out the window because the control, I had zero control of my car, and that was with knowing the keys. Mm-hmm. But this game, I will say, this game does not run at what I would call a breakneck pace. No. And so it slowly mopes along to the point where you may have a shot at trying to figure out how did you fare control wise, Boaster?
Well, once I figured out how to conceptualize, because I was looking at the typed up docs, right?
Me too.
I wasn't looking at like the real manual. And so what the typed up docs do is they give you both sets of controls for player 1 and player 2 together. Yeah. And so it would be like, to turn your car left, it's number 1 and number 7.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it wasn't until some folks on the Discord, I think it was Hermsky, the guy that suggested that we do this game, the Clives Club member, he said, this game was designed for 2 people to be able to play this at once on the same 48K spectrum. So the set of keys on the left side of the board is for player 1, the keys on the right side of the board are for player 2. And once I could wrap my head around that, it made sense. Did this make me a better player at this game? No, not at all. Yeah. I still struggled with it mightily.
Knowing the controls helped very little.
Yeah. But at least I was able to conceptualize what they were trying to do. And the fact that you can have 2 people playing this game simultaneously on the same keyboard is theoretically impressive.
Yeah, I agree. So on the initial circuit, this track is the layout of the game. You've got 2 screens, one of you and one of your opponent, and they're kind of zoomed in. Then you've got a central overarching map underneath these 2 that are right in the middle of the screen. You've got these 2 circles under each picture, and what these do is represent your speed in a very bizarre way. But I mean, it works, but it's just a circle that it fills in as you go faster, slower. It unfills in.
Yeah, it's a unique way to show your speed.
It's a dumb way. Here's what I think they did though, Boat. You couldn't have put they probably couldn't physically put a dial there like a speedometer. And so
here's the thing. Actually, I'm going to disagree with you about this because what does 75 miles an hour mean in this game? Where are you? This is a gauge, You're
right. I mean, it does for what you're looking for. It does the job. Then underneath that, you've got your fuel gauge, and then off to the sides, you've got the overall condition of your car. All right, and it's got you can tell if your tires are busted up or your front end or whatever, because the stuff will get discolored and eventually it'll turn red, and then eventually it stops working. How did you fare? Did you ever even come close to winning this first race?
No.
Yeah, I didn't either. Did you ever complete a race?
No.
Okay.
Well, I mean, yes, I did complete a race. I think I completed a race where, like, when the opponent who was in the lead crosses the finish line, you get this ungodly sound. It sounds like something directly from the pits of hell. And then the race just sort of continues, and I think that's just
there's a reason for that.
Okay.
You have to stop the game manually when you're done. All right. I believe it's either caps lock or shift and the number 6, I think.
Okay. Intuitive.
You have to do this on every game. Every one of these games you have to stop it. Now, this came into play big time in the Demolition Derby thing, which we'll talk about that. This game, it's funny, I played the computer and finally got to use the weapons. You want to talk about how the weapons work, Bo? Because it's also bizarre.
Well, you have different pods in your car. Okay, and so these pods can contain different weapons, and you push certain buttons to make the, to expel whatever is in the pod to come out. You've got stuff like smoke screen, oil spill, you've got lasers. So there's a wide variety of offensive,
missile.
There's lots of stuff that you can use, and so pressing the according key. Now, the problem is that I don't know. I just had a hard time remembering which, and maybe if I had the overlay, it would help with this. But after looking at the overlay, I don't think it does. We should mention something about the overlay. The overlay is quite bad. It's not good because a proper overlay would give you, it would envelop the keys that you use, and then above each key there would be some text that explains what that particular key does. That's what an overlay should do. In this game, you've got the envelopment of the keys, but you don't have what each individual key does. You'll just get like an overall heading that says steering or fire. And it's hard to imagine a worse designed overlay than the one that came with this game.
Still, I would love to have had it.
It wouldn't have done you any good. Would you pull out?
I mean, I'd like to have a 48K Speccy with that on.
I don't believe that it would have made it easier.
I think it would have helped me because I'm absent-minded as hell.
Here's the thing. Okay, lift up your hand. Okay, now put your hand down on an imaginary 48K spectrum. How many of the keys can you see with or without the overlay?
I can't see any.
Right, because your hand covers it up. It's the same thing as if you had the overlay on.
Well, but you can stare down. You can look down there. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong, but my brain's goo. So all that said, I thought this mode was the most entertaining. I will say that. It's you and your opponent. Now I played a few of these games, then I had the computer fight itself for a while for my amusement, which was funny.
That is I enjoyed that part of it.
This game goes as a glacial pace, but it actually helps because at least when you're using your weapon, you can actually look down and see what the heck you're doing. And try to figure it out. What I ended up finally doing is I actually took the overlays and put them on one of my screens and then played the game on the other so I could look up and try to at least get an idea of what I was doing.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably the way to do it.
I like the lasers and I like the flamethrowers. The lasers have this cheesy, basic line effect that I found amusing. I believe this game in BASIC.
It is written in BASIC, yes.
I thought it was, and so, but I mean, it looks like something that I would have done back then. But still, it works. The funny thing about this game is, this happened to me several times, and then it happened to the computer almost every time. And at the time, I didn't know about ending the game. What'll happen is you get to a point where your car doesn't work right, and a lot of times you'll just spin around in a circle like an idiot. Right?
That happened to me.
And inevitably your opponent would be damaged. The first couple of games, the opponent just destroyed me, and then just drove around, and I just didn't know how to finish the game, so I had to escape the emulator and start again. But one or two times where I actually had some luck in damaging the opponent. One time I got him so he couldn't turn a certain way, and so all he would do was just go around the perimeter of the battlefield. And all I could do is spin in a circle. And that was it. We couldn't do anything. And at the time, I thought, this is a huge game flaw. Well, no, it's not a game flaw. It's a feature because you have to stop the game.
Right.
Now, and then whoever has the most damage wins. So it's sort of the stopping the game thing is sort of a catch-all, I guess, in terms of that.
It's that sort of feature is something that you would expect out of a system like the Odyssey 1, where you have to go in and manually stop the game. Yeah.
Now, Bo, talk to the people about this third option, about going through the city.
So, I can't remember. When you go through the city, what do you do?
It's not much. It's not a ton different from the first.
I was going to say, what makes it different than the first map?
Well, this is the one I tried. In fact, I only tried it once. I didn't see exactly what was going on.
Good. I'm glad, because I was afraid that I missed out on something major.
This is actually, and by calling the city, it's referred to as town, if you want the truth. But you basically, we should mention that you pick your cars in these things, and then you go.
And the way that this works is, Okay, how does the car designer interact with the main program? Because these are two different programs.
Right. I
And,
assume it saves it on there.
no, that's not how it works. What it
Oh, okay.
does
So you get it.
is you get a code when you create your car, and you type in that code when you're playing the main game. And that code somehow translates, I'm sure it's like a hexadecimal thing, where the computer can read that code and outfit your car the way that you set it up in the car designer.
Oh, okay. That's that number.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, duh. I should have figured that out, shouldn't I? I didn't make my own cars. I fiddled with it, but I didn't, I wasn't in a position where I could do anything. I didn't think, if I'd known that, I would have done it then, because I didn't realize, I thought you had to save stuff to tape.
No.
So go figure. Excuse me. This game was probably well ahead of its time, Bode. Would you agree with that statement?
No.
There's a lot.
I would not agree with that at all.
Oh, okay. Well, please enlighten me. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this.
This game could have been great, and I'll tell you how this game could have been great. Mr. Julian should have drawn upon. Actually, I don't know if this game came before or after Chaos, but what this game should have been is a computerized rendition of the tabletop game Battle Cars, where you spend your time outfitting your car the best you can, tweaking it, and then when you go, you hit go, and either A, you let the computer take over and it runs all the numbers and everything, and you see the race play out in real time, or B, you have a turn-based thing where you're running around this track with an enemy, with an opponent, and you are deciding what to do on a turn-based basis. This action component of the game is by far the weakest part, and the fact that it's written in BASIC doesn't do it any favors. In fact, that's probably the main problem with this game. You can't make a game that's written in BASIC run fast. I mean, it just won't. In 1984, it's not like the Spectrum was a brand new system in 1984. It had been out a couple years, and people knew how to program fast-moving games for it. Speed is never a problem with the ZX Spectrum. What they should have done was written this game in a different language, not made it directly controllable, and make it play out like the pen and paper Battle Cars game that was already existed by Games Workshop.
By the way, just to step back for a moment, when you play the opening game, the circuit, there's no fighting. And when you play the town, it's like a track with fighting. That's the difference.
Okay. I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing that third. Okay.
But well, I keep forgetting because it's funny. On the first track, after I played the computer once, I just put it on time attack. And also, we should mention that some of these tracks will have pits. I never needed to use the pits because there was no way I was going to play enough laps where I'd have to go pit.
Right.
But it's an element of gameplay that would come in handy for a longer game.
The races are quite long in this game, for sure.
Yeah. Let's cut to the chase on this thing, because I think there's a lot of game here. I could absolutely see how this game could get over in the time it was released. I have no doubt in my mind, because the car battling games, the concept's awesome. Everybody wanted them, and this game sort of delivers on that concept. All right. It's hampered, obviously, like I said, by factors like being in BASIC and the control mechanism. I mean, this game, you are using like 12 keys on the keyboard to play this game. It's just too much. There's no, and like you said, this maybe would have done better as a turn-based thing, as opposed to doing it the way they did.
Here's another thing I wonder about, and I didn't get a chance to play this two-player, but is there a limit? Like on a PC keyboard, there's a limit to how many keys you can press down at once and have the computer recognize what's going on. That's why with the old main machines, you used to have to build the thing or buy the iPack or whatever. With the Spectrum, can you actually press two different keys simultaneously and have them register at once?
You'll have to tell me, because you've got this spec. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
I would assume you can plug two at once, because you have to in a couple of instances to get certain things to, like the game to end. For example.
Caps lock in a key is definitely true. But I mean, like if you're hot and heavy with this thing and you're playing with somebody else on the keyboard, you're both mashing down multiple keys at once. I wonder, what's the limit with what the Spectrum can recognize?
I will say the fact that this is two players simultaneous is impressive. The fact that you can edit the cars is impressive. The courses are long. They're detailed. They're not generic. I mean, there's stuff in the road. You're fighting the terrain. The fact that you've got pits, there's a lot of elements to this that make it real interesting. The problem for me, and this is one thing we've mentioned this a couple weeks ago, as someone who's a modern gamer that hasn't played games like this for a long time and have gotten maybe a little spoiled, it's just too slow. It's too slow, too hard to control. It may be more fun on an actual Spectrum where you can get in there with the overlays and stuff, but someone who's trying to emulate it, it's a bear. I had all kinds of trouble playing this, and I wanted to like it because it's my kind of game. I will say this, Bo, it wasn't just us that had a problem with it. I looked at the reviews for this. You got to remember, this is coming from a very celebrated programmer.
Yeah.
Personal Computer Games of February of '85 gave this thing a 70. But they were like, it's okay. The controls are difficult, but once you figure them out, it's okay. Crash gave this thing a 66. And, Crash usually is pretty solid.
They don't give anybody a bad grade ever.
Yeah, but they weren't too keen on this one. And I'll look this one up. Your Sinclair gave this a 10.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
They say it's got awful graphics. It also they said it crashes.
I'm sorry, not a 10 out of 10. Okay, this is a 10 out of 100. Okay.
Yeah, they hated it. And I read a couple reviews that mentioned this thing crashed. I will say I didn't have it crash.
Me neither.
But I actually thought it had crashed a few times just because the game wasn't in.
I was going to say, do you think that they might have misdiagnosed the crash without pressing cap 6 or whatever to end the game?
It's possible, man. Again, I don't know. This was a tough. We tackled this thing early. I mean, I actually played this right after it came up. And I spent a lot of time with it this week just trying to figure out how to – it took me a couple sessions to even figure out any idea what was going on. This was a very difficult one for a modern player. So if you're – now, I'm not saying you should get rid of this. This is the perfect example of something that should be on the next, all right? Mm-hmm. Take this game, jack up the speed of it because you can do that on the next. That might be a fun game right there. Use some of the capabilities that the Next gives you to ramp this thing up. If you ramp up the speed a little bit, it might be more fun, but you're not going to be doing anything about those controls probably. But maybe if someone was going to redo a game, this one probably wouldn't be the worst idea to redo.
Absolutely. And, thinking about it, from 1984, I mean, how many car combat games were there on the Spectrum? And B, how many car games gave you the level of customization that this game offers? I mean, there is a lot to attract a gamer at that time to this game. And I can definitely understand, especially the two-player aspect. There are so many games that we played. Target Renegade from last week is another example. You just can't undersell the appeal for two guys getting together, two friends that getting together and playing a game together is a lot of fun.
Yeah. I think this game, I mean, we know the guy that did it is a no slouch. I think this is, like I said, I mentioned this at the beginning of the thing, and you didn't agree, but I just think this was a game where he tried to do too much with what he had to work with.
Yeah.
I think, he's got a lot of game here, but we've talked about this, we just talked about this. If you've got a lot of game and a lot of interesting stuff to do, it all comes down to the gameplay. And if the gameplay stinks, you're bummed. Yeah. And the gameplay on this just didn't do it for me. It certainly didn't merit all the trouble I went through to get it up and running.
We haven't done a lot of top-down racers on the Spectrum, which is shocking because we've done more first-person racers on the Spectrum than we have top-down.
And we both love top-down.
Yeah. It'll be interesting as we move on through our Sinclair to be able to compare this game to some other games from the same genre.
Yeah, I agree. But like I said, I wanted to like this. The course, like I said, the complexity of the course and stuff were impressive. The weapons layout's impressive, but again, it was just not fun.
Yeah, we got some reviews over on our Discord channel. If you support the show either through Twitch or on Patreon, you can become a member of our Discord server and leave us a review to read it on the air. Paul, aka Hermsky, who is the Clive's Club member that suggested this game, he says 7 out of 10. Mad Max, eat your heart out. 1984 gave us our first chance to experience futuristic chaos on the Spectrum. I wonder if that pun was intentional. A detailed game with mini combat or racing modes to choose from. A nice one-player game, but really came into its element as a two-player game, designing your own car and then competing it against your friends. I had many fine evenings as a teenager playing this. A game that pushed the 48K basic to its limits, being able to present two-player screens simultaneously with the map, data, and detailed damage displays. Sadly, the game's controls were ridiculous and could have been better thought out. Having said that, two people sharing a small keyboard with so many commands was going to be a tall order. The playability is a little jumpy and difficult, but was that bad programming or was it over-demanding multiple procedures? Maybe a game not for everyone, just for the insane. I think that's very fair. Very fair.
I think that's I wouldn't give it a 7, but in concept I would give it a 7 because, like I say, it bites off a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Rushi says, impenetrably obtuse controls obscure a surprisingly deep and advanced car combat title.
Wow, Rushi breaking out the 10-cent words on that.
Yeah, man. If you can muscle your way through the hand-achingly terrible key layouts, you'll find an impressive driving model to complement the top-down post-apocalyptic two-player car combat. To put it in a modern perspective, imagine if you combined Forza with Twisted Metal and then had to play it with a Steel Battalion controller. Innovative for its time, it's difficult to fully appreciate and enjoy it if you haven't got an overwhelming sense of nostalgia for it. True. The Steel Battalion controller thing is pretty on point. And finally, Chris Folds writes, a new game on me and I really wanted to like this game, but I just couldn't gel with it. The controls are obtuse to the point of frustration and I feel are masking the gameplay. I managed a few games and kind of enjoyed them, but I never felt comfortable or in the zone when playing as I was always fighting those controls. I'm told it comes alive with two-player, but we're in isolation, so I didn't get a chance to try that. So I have to judge it as a one-player game. So yeah, I agree with all those reviews. I think that there is something here, and this is something different. One thing that we didn't talk about was that Paul mentioned was the detail on the damage. You get that same kind of blueprint of your car, and as your car is damaged, those parts change color. Pretty cool. So there is a lot going on here. I just think that the actual action part of the game sells the rest of the stuff short. For sure. Yeah,
the damage actually is pretty well done, and it changes different aspects of the game. Your control, your fuel will go quicker. You lose weapons, but yeah, it's just too difficult to play.
Yeah. Well, Aaron, before we leave, we should probably thank all the fine folks that have joined us live on the old Twitch chat. We record every Friday, and as long as we remain in isolation, we'll be recording at a more European-friendly hour. Retro Gaming Denmark has joined us. Paul Kitching, always glad to see Paul. Ed Van Hellen joining us from the Man Cave. Picard 2010 is here. Rushi MSX in the house. Real Ruffy is here. Thank you guys so much, L. Curtis B. and Gary Hucker, for joining us in the chat. And Picard 2010, of course. So thank you guys for joining us. We also want to thank our Twitch subscribers. You can subscribe to the show on Twitch and support our shows that way. You get the same benefits that you do as if you were a Patreon supporter. We want to thank Buck Owens, Chris Folds, Christian Russell, Mohawk Mall, Go Sub, Retro Jerry, Uber Scuba Diver, G Webkey, Frodo NL, Real Joe the Zombie, Still Adolescing, Macintosh, Librarian, Rushi MSX, Mitsuyama, Darkwing 602, Kilobytes and Caffeine, Honored Shadow, and Wing Chun Wolf. Thank you guys for supporting us on Twitch. Don't forget that if you have subscribed to us through your Amazon Twitch Prime subscription, you do need to renew that manually once a month if you'd like to keep supporting the show. We sure would appreciate it. And finally, Aaron, we want to thank Hermsky, Paul, one more time for being a Clive's Club member and suggesting this game to us. We also want to thank the rest of our Sinclair supporters, Mark Downey, Hermsky, Andrew Waite, Cap'n Crispy, Laurent Giroux, Gary Heather, Eric Nelson, Harbonaut, Graham Webkey, Frodo, NL, Tapes from the Crypt, Pixels at Dawn, Chris Folds, Paul Bossman Harrington, and Christopher Hassal. Aaron, next week, it is adventure game time on the Spectrum. And this is one that I've been wanting to play for a while. We're going to be playing The Hobbit.
Oh, okay. All right. We'll see how that one goes.
You're a wizard, Harry.
Those movies, man. They really ruined it for me.
Well, luckily, this game predates all of the movies. It even predates the anime. I guess the animated cartoon was the Lord of the Rings. I don't think they made a Hobbit one.
I think they did.
Did they? Okay. I think so. Anyway, yeah, The Hobbit. I'm looking forward to it. I'm a big Tolkien guy.
Me too.
Big LOTR guy. So yeah. All right, guys. Well, we will see you next week. Until then, rewind tape
and press play.
Oh, Pix, I forgot to mention you on the list there. Sorry about that. Okay.
You fired.
You ready for Atari?
Yeah, I don't have to do any notes for that. I'm good to go.
You're good to go. This is an easy one for you. Let's see here. Looks like I didn't even add the NDL source here. Okay. Oh, there we are. I know you guys can't hear Aaron, but he's here. Actually, I guess... Oh, okay. It just took a second to pop up. Atari's not the not the Atari 8-bits, Edmund. Remember, the father of the Amiga was the Atari 800. Put myself up here. What are you drinking tonight in the man cave, Edmund? Cheap off the counter beer. Ugh. That must be killing you since you've got all your awesome stuff there beside you. All your home brewing accoutrement. Okay, now we need to move this down below here. And then put this in. So is everything going okay, guys? I mean, is the audio quality okay? And I was worried when we, it's always scary doing something new, you know, but I hope that we can be entertaining during this time. Good. Glad to hear it. You're right, Reffy. It's so funny how the Atari was so big in Eastern Europe, but it wasn't really a thing, was it? In like Norway, where there are lots of people that had Ataris. Come a little bit closer in here. Yeah, but did you ever see any 8-bits, Reffy? Did you see a lot of 400s and 800s? Yeah, just sort of interesting how the marketing was. Of course, the market was so, especially in the UK, the market was so overly saturated with 8-bit, low-cost 8-bit computers that you know, it's the same story as with the Apple II. I'm sure that they just couldn't compete. Okay. Now that you're seated, I can...
Sorry, boat.
No problem. What are you eating?
Chip. Teresa's mom stopped by while I was out in here, like an idiot, who should not be out.
Right.
They don't listen to me.
All right. I think that looks okay. That's too tall.
Hold on 1 second before you start.
It's a great deal, Reffy. The 90s were a golden era for getting into that era. You know, the Atari 2600. You can still find stuff in yard sales and out-of-the-way places. Of course, a lot of 2600 stuff is cheaper now than it was in the 90s. There's some interesting stories, like Bernstein Bears used to have this rep for being one of the most rare games ever for the 2600, and then one day they just we found a warehouse full of 8,000 Bernstein Bears games, and the value was like, woo! You're gazing into my eyes in a somewhat uncomfortable way.
Sorry, you're enchanting, Boat, as always.
I know. It's a shame that I chose this day to wear the Coco shirt since we're not recording the Coco show. It's all right. It's subliminal advertising.
At least you're wearing a shirt. That's the way I look at it.
It's true.
You got on pajama pants.
You know it.
And slippers.
I never wear anything other than pajama pants and slippers unless I go outside. That's how I roll.
Mm-hmm. Whenever you're ready, man.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad you said that because I didn't adjust your level here. Talk a little bit more for me.
Okay. How's that? I will talk all day. You can't shut me up.
All right. That looks good. Okay.
Sorry about the coughing, but I wasn't coughing until I started the show, but all this talking makes me cough.
Yeah. You got your Diet Citrus Drop Extreme with you?
Who to what now?
Your Diet Citrus Drop Extreme?
No. I've got this new Mountain Dew Zero. I'm trying that. That's what I had on hand, you know.
Just refresh my mind real quick. Okay.
That's reassuring.
Sorry, I'm doing it again. I have to get that skip in the video. It drives me insane.
I wonder why it does that.
It only does it the first time you play it. It's like it's remembering how to play the video.
Did you upgrade your OBS? Did you updates out?
I don't know. This is
also,
probably...
my camera updated too. I couldn't believe it.
That's crazy. Your Logitech?
Yeah.
Huh. I'll have to check that out too. All right, one more time. Hi, everybody. Welcome to 1200 XL. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today, Aaron, we're going to be talking about one-on-one.
You see what I was doing right there? I was pretending I was my little animated Aaron. He bobs around. He looks both ways.
Is that what animated Aaron does?
That's what he did in the little opening there.
Oh yeah, that's true.
We're in the little meteor hole.
Mm-hmm. It's a meteor hole.
What do they call it? Crater. That's
I prefer meteor hole myself.
Yeah.
So
I'm great, Boat. 101's awesome. I'm ready to go on this.
I want to talk to you about your experience playing basketball. Now, I know you were quite the sportsman in school. You were on the tennis team.
Yeah.
You were in the marching band. So you weren't averse to physical activity. Did you ever pursue any dreams related to basketball?
No. Although I will say I played a lot of basketball when I lost my first 100 pounds. I used to get off work every night. I had a deal with the cops. They'd let me in the city park at 11 o'clock at night or midnight. And I would go to the basketball court and just play basketball by myself.
You just play yourself?
And, well, eventually people started showing up to play.
It's like Field of Dreams, man.
It was. And so some nights I would have 10 people out there, and some nights it would just be me.
Wow.
So, but I still suck, no matter how much I tried.
I'd love to see some footage of you out there in the court. I just picture you like what's his name? And Wesley Snipes. And you're out there like
White Man Can't Jump.
Yeah, that sort of era of clothing, and you might be wearing a do-rag in this particular fantasy that I have. And
wear those.
You're just slamming them down. Slamma-jamma.
That movie had an accurate title for me. It could be White Man Can't Jump, Play, or even perform in any way in a basketball court.
Now, did you ever have a basketball hoop outside your house growing up?
I never did. We never did. I was not into basketball that much. My neighbor had one. I used to go over and play sometimes. That always seemed like a crazy idea because of the ball could out in the road or over the hill.
That's true. And you lived sort of, well, I don't think, you didn't grow up in a real busy street, but it wasn't exactly dead.
Right.
So.
When I was a kid, it was a lot busier.
Well, that's surprising considering there's 8,000 more houses around there now than there were then.
Well, not where I'm at, just in the back.
Yeah.
Now, what about you? Did you play basketball?
I never played organized ball. That's what they call it, just ball.
Is that that's what the cool people say?
Yeah. Basketball was something I always thought I'd be good at until I started playing. And then it became apparent quite immediately that I didn't really have a lot of skill. I was always good with the, I felt like I could be a good outside guy. But as far as like charging to the rim, I tripped over myself a lot, on the way to the rim, and I just ended up falling a heap. It was no good.
You've got some of the proportions of a 7-foot basketball player. It's just that you're a foot shorter.
That's true. But we had a hoop outside. It was actually hanging over our garage. It was like that deal. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And but unfortunately, one of the neighborhood ruffians decided he was going to throw down a slam and rip the whole thing off, and that was the end of the good times.
He shattered the backboard.
He did. Not unlike the game. Speaking of the game, Aaron, let's talk about one-on-one.
All right.
So this was one of the early hits for Electronic Arts, EA, famous for its Atari 8-bit games. A lot of times the Atari 8-bit was the lead platform for these games. This was published by EA in 1983. This came in that familiar record album style cover. If you're not familiar with the physical packaging of one-on-one, this comes from a time when EA was publishing a lot of their games in what looked like 45 record sleeves. And they would have a gatefold where they'd open them up. You'd see pictures of the programmers and things, which was really unusual. A lot of times at this time, game programmers toiled away in anonymity. And of course, Activision was the first publisher to really make superstars out of their programmers, but EA was right behind. And they actually treated these guys like the artists that they were, Electronic Arts. That's the message they were trying to send.
They forgot their own message, Bode.
They did.
Later on, they totally forgot that message.
The EA of today is not the same as the Trip Hawkins EA of yesteryear.
No, it is not.
This game was developed by Eric Hammond and Chuck Peavy. And the graphics were done by Greg Hammond. Eric and Greg, I believe, were brothers. And the concept of this game was actually the developer. I read that Trip Hawkins actually was the person behind this. He said, "Why don't you make a game based on the old one-on-one competitions of the 1960s that the NBA used to do. Back in the 60s and the 70s, and Aaron is someone who was around back in the 60s and the 70s. I'm sure you can attest to this.
I wasn't around in the 60s.
Yeah,
come on.
Maybe. That the NBA was not the juggernaut that it is today. It was struggling to be relevant, and of course, the NBA was also competing against a rival league. You had the ABA and the NBA.
Yep.
And so there was a hair tonic company called Vitalis that would sponsor these one-on-one competitions, and they would play these, I guess, on Sundays, Wide World of Sports and all that. And it would be two guys, half court, just playing a game against each other. Could you imagine how cool that would be to see these days, to see like Stephon Curry versus LeBron James? I'd love to see something like that.
It's funny when you mentioned that to me. I was baffled because I was, as someone who watched a ton of Wide World of Sports and sports TV, I'd never heard of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the concept is awesome. I don't think players would do it now, if you want the truth.
There's all kinds of reasons, from the, not wanting to lose face, because if you lose in one-on-one, there's only one person to blame. And of course, there's also the additional liability with insurance, and I'm sure agents would have issues with people playing outside of their contracts and all that stuff. But I would love to see this sort of thing come back, because there's nothing like two guys, just kind of squaring off against each other. You really get to see, especially from the defensive side of things. And
I think it'd be really neat.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, it's basketball is in the unique position where they could pull this off as a team sport and have it not suck.
Right.
Because you're not going to have like one-on-one hockey. You know what I mean?
You can't really do one-on-one American football. Basketball is
good. You can have skills competition.
Yeah.
But not a proper game.
Right. Basketball is suited to this in a unique way.
I love it, and I'm gonna try to find some of these. I'd love to watch a few of these guys. I wasn't a huge basketball fan when I was a kid, but I knew some of the guys. Mm-hmm. So it'd be fun to go back and actually catch some of these games.
Oh yeah, and of course everything about watching these on YouTube is great now. From not only the different styles of uniform for back then, but just watching the people in the crowd and how they're dressed. Everybody's smoking. It was back in the glory years of sport, really.
Yeah, and it's something else about this too. If you're playing a game, if you play a Madden or something, or even any basketball game with like all the players, the level of complexity soars. Like this game boils down basketball to its core components. And so you just go out there. It's a great, fun game. It's just like you would play on a playground, with your friends.
Right.
So you can identify with what's going on. So right. I like everything about it. A brilliant move.
Yeah. So on the cover of this game, unlike other basketball games at the time, you see real, actual people. This is still early on in the sports oeuvre of video games, and there weren't too many licensed sports titles that actually featured real players. I want to say that there was a Pete Rose baseball game that came out around this time, and of course, I think Earl Weaver baseball was probably a little bit after this. That might have been '85, but
those early days. Yeah,
there weren't too many licensed sports titles, and so this stood out because of that. And this made this game a big seller, I'm sure, because if you just called this game one-on-one, I mean, what are we doing here? That's not. It doesn't exactly make you want to pick it up off the shelf. This game features prominently on the cover two of the biggest superstars of the era. It features Dr. J and Larry Bird.
Yeah, and they got it right in the game too by making it look like they do with the colored uniforms they've got, plus with the numbers they've got on them. They did a good job.
Yeah. So who are these guys? So I thought I'd give you a little history lesson on both of these guys.
Okay.
First up, Julius Erving, Dr. J. This guy was born 1950. So he is a good 10 years older than Larry Bird. Larry Bird was in his ascendancy when this game came out, and I wouldn't say that Dr. J, his career wasn't exactly fading, but he was definitely on the downward slope of his career. Yeah, he played in both the ABA and the NBA. He played from 71 to 87, so quite a long career. He was
one of the pivotal reasons the ABA got a good hard look by the NBA, because they saw players of his quality. They wanted him.
Right. So he played for the Virginia Squires in the ABA and the New York Nets he played for the Squires and the New York Nets, which were at the time part of the ABA. Then when he transferred over to the NBA, he played for the Philadelphia 76ers. This guy was really the first guy that brought the slam dunk into the mainstream. He could jump like nobody's business, and the phrase above the rim, he sort of popularized that style of play. Up until then, the slam dunk was just sort of seen as a kind of a Neanderthal type move, and he brought a real artistry to the slam dunk that had never been seen before. Larry Bird, sort of the opposite in a lot of ways. Larry Bird, of course, the hick from French Lick, Indiana, which it's not very far, less than 5 hours away from where we live, French Lick, Indiana. And he played in the NBA about 10 years after Dr. J did. He played from 79 to 92, so he had a much longer career. And he played his full career with the Boston Celtics. And he was most famous for his sort of take no prisoners attitude. He was not always a bright and cheerful fellow. He was a very intense player. He had a famous rivalry with Magic Johnson. And the Lakers-Celtics rivalry was the most famous in all of basketball for a long time. And he was a great shooter, one of the most prolific shooters in NBA history. There's a famous scene where he comes into the locker room at a three-point competition, and all the guys are in there, and he just announces, "Hey, who's going to win second in the shot competition today?" He was that confident. So,
I was a big fan of Larry Bird. And the Celtics, because I like their individual players. I mean, really, I didn't have a team per se in basketball, but I end up liking the Celtics because of Bird. But I always had a thing for these guys that were like real technicians,
Mm-hmm.
And Bird was like just a great long distance shooter.
Yeah.
And he was also known for his ability to do like blind passes and stuff.
Oh yeah,
assists.
the no look pass was something. I mean, you watch his highlight reels. It's amazing to look at. So both these guys, legends of the sport, of course. Both these guys in the Hall of Fame.
Dr. J, I did catch some of his career, and as I recall, now stop me if I'm wrong here, Bo, but I believe he was one of the guys that did the big sky hook, wasn't he?
No, Skyhook was a different guy.
Was that a different guy?
Yeah, I believe that was Wilt Chamberlain did the Skyhook.
No, I think this guy did the sky hook. We'll have to look into it. Somebody help me out here.
We'll have to look into it and see.
Wilt Chamberlain, I also caught the tail end of his career, and he was a whole different kettle.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was the Skyhook guy.
That's who it was. Thank you.
Yeah.
But I caught some of this guy predated me by a smidge.
Yeah.
So I didn't get, but mostly what I caught was Bird and the Celtics, and you weren't kidding. The Celtics-Lakers rivalry was a real big deal in the early '80s. And for me, that's when the NBA peaked, and I sort of lost interest after that. And, of course, now it's probably super-duper peaked.
Yeah, it's a shame that...
basketball is not a sport that I'm really that much into.
Right.
I'd much rather play it than I would watch it.
Yeah, I feel like basketball is the one sport that I really grew up in the best time you could possibly grow up. Because, like, when I was coming around, first of all, one of the big things, me growing up, was the Dream Team. The first time that the NBA sent pro players to play in the Olympics. And that's when you had like Jordan and Bird and all these guys and Barkley all on the same team. It was the ultimate all-star team.
I hated that so much.
Why did you hate that?
Because it ruined the Olympics for a lot of like college guys. Plus, it made the Olympics not the least bit fun to watch. Watch an all-star team smash every other team in the world every year. It just didn't do it.
First of all, that only happened for 1 year, and then the rest of the years, the next Olympics, America got smashed because everybody else got really good at basketball. So I think if you actually chart the way that developed, it's not at all how you remember it. But anyway, I
don't remember it like you just said. That's for darn sure.
Yeah, you should look it up. But the Dream Team was great. I loved the Dream Team. I loved watching Jordan. I loved watching the ascendancy of the Pistons in the late 80s. I was a big basketball guy growing up, and then I lost interest at about the time that I entered into high school. And I didn't really have time to watch a lot of sports, and I wasn't into it anymore. But anyway, this game is a one-on-one competition between Dr. J and Larry Bird. And you have a lot of options right off the bat. Basically, any option you can possibly think of is present. You can choose a difficulty level, and the way that they do the difficulty was kind of neat. Instead of just making it like easy, difficult, expert, you got Park and Rec, varsity, college, and pro. And when I was a kid, I had no idea what park and rec meant.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, I wasn't sure, and I wasn't real sure what varsity meant either when I was a kid. And so I wasn't sure if the difficulty started at pro and went up, or if it started at park, or if it went the other way around. But, of course, park and rec is the easiest difficulty level. You can watch a demo of this game, which was cool. There weren't a whole lot of games where you could just watch the computer play. Of course, you're not going to want to do that for a long time, but you can. You can set this to be whenever you make a basket, if you get the ball back or the other guy gets the ball back. You can either choose to play a timed game, or you can play to a set score. Playing to a set score, I find, is a much more enjoyable way to play this, because the game can go on, especially if you're just playing against the computer. I like playing to 21. It's a neat thing. And so when you get into the game, the first thing that you'll notice, if you've played any other basketball games from this time period, is how big the individual sprites are, how detailed they are, and how slow this game moves compared to other basketball games. If you've played the Atari basketball for the Atari 8-bits, have you played that one, Aaron?
Long ago, I did, yeah.
Yeah, that game is basically, you can't even call them stick figures.
Yeah, it's low end.
Yeah. You're basically, the ball careens around the court like a pinball, and if your player just happens to be in the general vicinity, he will pick it up and basically carry it around. And when you shoot it, you have no control over your shot. You just sort of fling it into the stratosphere. If it goes in, it goes in. If it doesn't, it's really, really not good. This game plays like a real game of basketball. It's played from a half-court perspective, and if you can picture yourself sitting in the stands behind a half-court of basketball, maybe 20 rows up, you're looking down upon the action. You're kind of even with the rim, your viewpoint, so you have a full view of the court. The court and the back is all black, and it almost sort of reminds me of, have you ever seen The Wiz before?
The movie?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, do you remember when Dorothy first lands in Oz?
Yes.
Okay. So you remember how it's like she's like in this playground and everything is just sort of half lit, and it looks like a lot of stuff is like with black lights and stuff.
Yeah.
That's what this reminds me of. It's like,
wow, that's a long way to go.
It is a long way to go, but that was the first thing that came to mind. Could they have made this with more colors, with the having some stands in the back and having the wood court of the wood of the court? They could have done that. Does it take away from it? It's hard to say. It does make it seem a little bit more unreal, but maybe unreal in a good way. It never bothered me. And what do you think about the way this game looks, Aaron?
This game has the best and worst graphics in one game, all rolled into one. The funny thing about it is, it's almost like this game takes place in someone's fever dream, because it reminds me of that Star Trek episode Spectre of the Gun, where they go to that cowboy town and there's just like the fronts of buildings in the back of this void. Mm-hmm. That's what this is. It's just everything's black except for the outlines of the lines on the court and the basket, and of course you've got your scoreboard up there. But the characters of Dr. J and Larry Bird are awesome looking. They're big. You can see who they are. Their arms and legs move like a basketball players probably would. The ball looks good, and so it's a mixed bag. Now I will say this: do the graphics take away from the gameplay? No, they don't. And so with that reasoning, the graphics have never bothered me, even when I played this back. Of course, also this is from '83, so you were sort of used to stuff looking kind of crummy. And then when you saw the characters, you were like, wow, those look great. And you sort of forgot about the rest of the crumminess.
Right. Dr. J and Larry Bird are not the only characters in this game. There is also a referee that will come out and blow a whistle and will call various penalties.
Hacking, reaching in.
Right. Traveling.
Charging.
There is also a custodian, which it might be modeled on the same model as the referee, because every once in a while when you slam the ball down, the entire backboard will shatter. and you will see this. This will happen in slow motion, and the referee / custodian will come out with a little sweeper. It tickled me because the referee also kind of curses at you. They're like, meh, 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 in that Keybert sort of cursing style, being like, why'd you make me sweep this thing up? So that is really, I thought that was really clever. There were instant replays in this game. This has got to be the first basketball game in history with instant replays. You'll be playing along, the action will stop, and then the text will come up instant replay, and it'll show you in slow motion, which is really, really slow considering the general pace of this game. Another really neat thing. In the documentation of this game and in the advertisements, they make a big deal about saying that they actually consulted Dr. J and Larry Bird about their play styles, and they would show them footage of this game, and whenever they wanted to make changes, they would make those changes. Now, how much of that is marketing versus reality, who can say? But I will say that these guys do play differently. Bird definitely shoots three-pointers better than Dr. J. You are more likely to connect with a dunk with Dr. J than Larry Bird. So, you know, on the very superficial level, these guys do play differently. The way that these guys, their arms move is very impressive. The way that you steal the ball, it doesn't seem quite as random as other games where you actually have to maneuver your hand in the right place. The way they get away with only having one button, if you tap the button while you have the ball, if you just tap it, you'll turn around and face away from your opponent. If you hold it down, you'll shoot it. If you hold it down while you're facing away from your opponent, you'll actually do a turnaround jump shot. The animation's very impressive. There's really a lot to like about the overall presentation of this game. You know, we talked about the speed before. This game did get ported later on to the Amiga a couple years later, and they sped the action up a lot. And in addition to speeding the action up, they added the wood court, they added the stands in the background. It looks like you're playing in a real arena. What did you think about the Amiga version of this game, Aaron?
Well, just to back, also, believe it or not, when I was a kid, I played this in the Coco. So the Coco version, that's a lot more similar to this than the Amiga version. Just to back up for a split second, you talked about the controls. That's another thing that makes this game. The tapping of the button to spin your back, that's what happens in a real game of one-on-one.
Sure.
You get your body in front of your opponent, and the spins and stuff you do are awesome. Yeah. All that's great. Now, when you talk about the Amiga version, clearly the graphics, you have the parquet floor and the colors and scheme and whatnot, and it looks more impressive. But it's really fast. I would say it's probably 1.5 times the speed of the Atari version. Yeah. Excuse me. And me personally, maybe it's just because I played the Atari and the Coco version so much, I don't actually like it to be that fast. One of the things I like about this game is that you have time to plot out how you want to approach the basket. When am I going to do my spin move? When am I going to shoot? What am I going to, what am I going to do here? The other game felt a little too chaotic for me. So if it's just me personally, I prefer the Atari speed of the game. Plus, in a weird way, I like the graphics. Again, I've been used to playing it on the Atari. I mean, they're clearly inferior graphics, but there's no distractions. It's just you, your opponent, and the outline of the field. That's all you need. I don't have a problem with that. The Amiga, like I said, it looks better. But it's not like $1 million screen or anything. It looks better, but it's not mega better. Right.
And I think that the players themselves, the player models, I would say that they look maybe, 1.5 times as good if you want to use the same comparison. I mean, they look better, but they still don't look. It's almost like an uncanny valley effect where in the Atari version, they're still so abstract that you can superimpose what the guys look like better and more easily than on the Amiga version where they try and make them look even more realistic. And as a result, you're like, man, that looks like a messed up Larry Bird.
Well, and on the Atari version, they actually move like humans. Like, this is about the speed a basketball game would go. Right. You could make up this amount of space in this amount of time. The Amiga version was just, again, I thought it was too fast. Now, if we played it more, we might be into it. Getting back to the backboard. When I was a young man, when that happened, it was like the most awesome thing. I remember the first time it happened, we were all freaking stunned. one of my buddies told me it had happened, and I didn't believe him. Because, kids made up crap all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And I distinctly remember sitting at my neighbor's house when we slam dunked it and broke the backboard, and it was a hootenanny. We went crazy.
Yeah.
It seems silly, but, today. Because it's the effect is it's not like it's the awesomest effect, but it's pretty good.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
And the janitor coming out. This is this game's version of the little troll coming out and kicking the head across the screen in Barbarian. Basically, it's a little tidbit that makes it fun.
Right.
Also, getting back to the ref, like the refs actually don't screw you. I feel like when they come out, you probably did something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to reach in too much, or you traveled or whatever. So the refs, I believe you can turn the refs off too. So I like that aspect of it. I mean, overall, this is a game. Are you going to sit down and play this game for like 10 hours? No. Are you going to sit down and play it for 20 minutes? Absolutely. And are you going to play your buddy at it? Absolutely. We just played this the other day on the Amiga, and we had a real good time, didn't we, both?
Yes, absolutely. It's deceptively simple, and you wouldn't think that a one-on-one basketball game would be any good, but it totally is. It's totally great. There were some sequels to this that were released for the 8-bit consoles, and even the Genesis got the sequel. The sequel was Larry Bird against Michael Jordan. Jordan versus Bird one-on-one. On the whole, I would recommend trying the NES version. It has a similar play style of I'd say the speed is probably closer to the Amiga speed. It does play more quickly, but there are some interesting things that are in that game. Some other modes. There's a 3-point competition that you can do. There is a dunk contest where you call the dunk from a menu, like the menu at the beginning of the game, and then you try and execute it. So there were just
I played that.
Yeah, there's some additional features that make it fun. But man, this game, the Atari original, it holds up. It's still just as much fun now as it ever has.
The sequel, it didn't come out on the 8-bits, did it?
No, by the time it came out, the Atari 8-bit was already singing off into the darkness. This game was re-released for the XEGS when the XEGS was launched. It would have been great. Of course, that was still a little bit pre-Jordan. But
can you imagine buying this for the XEGS and considering what it's competing against?
Yeah.
I mean, you would look like an idiot to show this to your friends.
Yeah, you probably didn't. You probably didn't. But it is. But it was one of the games because Atari realized that this is one of the best games on the system, and so they re-released it in cart form. You can still pick this thing up pretty cheap. You can get the 45 style cover sealed on eBay right now for $35.
Yeah.
That's stunning to me. When you consider the price of some of those games like Mule, in that same sort of packaging.
Then you get Bird to autograph it for you.
Yeah.
Or Dr. J. I think they're both. I know Bird's still around.
Yeah, I think they're both still around. The XEGS release, somebody is trying to hawk this thing on eBay for $100 sealed. I think that's probably a little high. You can pick up the cart only for $17 if you're into collecting those carts. The other 8-bit ports of this are all pretty good. Even the DOS CGA port isn't bad. The only really bad looking one is the one for the ColecoVision, which is really surprising considering the ColecoVision usually got pretty good ports. It looks, the characters are monocolor. It looks like an Atari 2600 port. Not good.
I didn't know it was got a Coleco port. That's very stunning to me.
I didn't know that either.
That a whirl.
Yeah. So anyway, this game, I could find one review. Happy Computer from issue 4 in 1985 ranked it the number 10 best game in 1984, and that's the reader's vote, and that encompassed, I guess, the C64, Apple II, and Atari 8-bit versions.
I give this high marks. I mean, it's always when you told me we were playing that this week. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. This is one of my favorite sports games on the 8-bits. It's beautiful and fun in its simplicity. And you get 2 players. I mean, I've spent many an hour playing this with somebody else. And you could load it up today, and it plays dead on. There's no learning curve. You just go in there and play.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Aaron, as we near the end of the show, we should mention that we do record this show live we do 1200 XL once or twice a month. Whenever we do record, we always do it live on twitch.tv/Amigos Retro Gaming. We usually record in conjunction with the other podcasts on the network. We have an Amiga show called Amigos. We have a ZX Spectrum show called Our Sinclair, a TRS-80 color computer show called The Coco Show. And of course, you and the Brent do ARG Presents here on Twitch too. You can join the party in Twitch if you're watching this on YouTube. For the first time, you can actually see the Twitch chat on the screen. You can join the crew, Rushi MSX, L Curtis B, Pixels at Dawn Gaming doing a great job as our mod, Edvin Helland reporting from the man cave over in Norway. Real Reffies here. So still adolescing. So thank you guys so much for joining us. And if you'd like to support the show, you can always support us through Patreon, patreon.com/Our Sinclair. Just $1 a month gives you access to the ad-free version of the show on the podcast, as well as access to our Discord server where you can post a review that we will read each week. So I encourage you to do that if you should feel so inclined. And of course, you can also subscribe to us on Twitch and even just listening to the show. We appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to two guys talk about the Atari 8-bits, the awesome Atari 8-bit computer. Well, Aaron, I guess that's going to be it. We'll see you guys in a couple weeks with another episode of 1200 XL. Bye-bye.
Take it easy.
All right, we're out.
There you go.
Yeah. Thanks,
that's a great
guys.
game. I love that. That's the game of the day right there.
Yeah. Yeah, I really love, man, I'd forgotten how good it was until I fired it up again. You want to do Bruce Lee next time since you still got the notes for that one?
Yeah, Bruce Lee. Love Bruce Lee.
Cool.
You're doing all my favorites just to butter me up, aren't you?
No, I mean, you can lead the charge because you've already got the notes. I don't have to do anything. That's my plan.
I've got the notes for the Spectrum.
The Spectrum version is exactly the same as the Atari 8-bit version.
No. I don't agree with that.
It's not the same. It's not the same. The green Yamo actually green in the Atari 8-bit version.
That's right. That's right. We should, it's too bad you can't play the Atari on like the Amiga, have that 2-player thing going.
Yeah, that's true.
That'd be cool. The Amiga, we're very fortunate on that.
Yeah.
That was super fun. We should do that more often.
We should. Next time we'll put out the clarion call on Discord to see if anybody wants to get together to do Lemmings, because I think Lemmings would be a great game to do that with, because it's not dependent on speed.
Guys in the chat, I hope this wasn't too bizarre. We're still learning what we're doing. Boat's the technical genius. How did it feel on your end, Boat? Did you?
Oh, it was great. I think that using Skype is the way to go. The NDI source component. Are you and Brent going to record together tomorrow?
Brent Sunday, yeah, he is coming over Sunday.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay, so you don't have to worry about this.
No. But that'll be it. I think I may go out. I told myself I wasn't going out till Wednesday. I think I'm going to go out tomorrow. Just grab a few things and just to be on the safe side. But it's we're in a weird sort of zone there, Bo.
Yep. So is everybody else in the world.
Hopefully everyone is chilling. The thing about it, Bo, it's funny when you want to stay at home and do nothing, you never can. And when you're forced to do it, for me anyway, I just feel like I'm just like a deer in the headlights. Like, what the hell's happening?
Yeah.
And so I would enjoy myself a lot more if things would even out, news wise. That there is concern there. But I'm hoping at least things will calm down within the next week or so I can at least have an idea of what's going to happen. And then I can have a little more time to chill out and forget about everything else. That it's not easy, though. It's weird.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Yeah, you're right, Rushi. It's a good thing that I did not burn the studio down. I managed to not blow anything up over the course of these recordings. All right.
Okay, I got a phone call, so I will let you guys go. Adios, everybody.
Adios, guys.
Bye-bye.